Chapter 1147. At this point, Shi Wuchen and the others all showed an inexplicable surprise on their faces. The meaning behind Pu Deshuang's words was obvious. If they had not reached the standard, he would not have said this at all. Since you have said it, it proves that we have reached the standard. Yun Yang's face was unruffled and unusually calm. Please elaborate, Deacon. Pu Deshuang looked at Yun Yang with admiration and said, in the battle of the celestial luck banners, if someone can pass through all the celestial luck banners in one go and advance directly, he will be rewarded with a month's time in the demonic realm. Yun Yang frowned and said, the demonic realm? This was the first time he had heard of this term. Pu Deshuang glanced at the token in his hand. It was glowing with endless words appearing on it. This was the token to open the fifth heaven. The demonic realm is a place of cultivation that was specially set up by the senior many years ago. Pu Deshuang said, the senior had predicted that there would be a battle between the human world and the demon race in the future, so he deliberately left a blessed place to help the younger generation improve their cultivation. However, to enter this realm, the 9 levels of the celestial luck banners as one is the first indispensable condition. Only when this condition is met can one be qualified to enter. Therefore, even we from the Sacred Heart Palace have never seen what's going on inside, Yi Futian said. There was a hint of regret in Pu Deshuang's voice. I would like to see it too. Unfortunately, I don't have such an opportunity. Only Yun Yang with the celestial luck banner was qualified to enter. Also, those who participated in the battle of the celestial luck banners of the residents of 9 Supremes could also enter if they also had the shadow of the celestial luck banner. Others, including Jiang Luo, could not enter together, let alone others. Pu Deshuang said enviously, Sect Leader Yun, now as long as you connect your celestial luck banner to this token in my hand, you can enter that secret realm. Yun Yang did not immediately take out the celestial luck banner, but asked cautiously, Deacon Pu, is there any other explanation about this realm? Pu Deshuang shook his head and said, no special explanation. There is only one relevant clue about this realm, and that is, after everyone enters, everyone will be separated from the others. In other words, everyone's experience in this realm is different. Does that mean that when the 20 of us enter, we won't be able to see each other, let alone interact with each other? Yes. In this realm, everyone has their own fortuitous encounters, and they can't advance by cooperating with each other. Understood. May I ask again, Deacon Pu, is there any danger in here? Yun Yang asked. Pu Deshuang looked at Yun Yang in surprise. At this moment he really had the thought of befriending Yun Yang. This fellow's mind was simply too clear. If it was anyone else, they would be wild with joy after knowing that they had obtained such a benefit. Even if they were experienced and prudent, in the face of such a great opportunity, their faces would at least be flushed with excitement, right? Looking at Shi Wuchen and the others who were with him, they almost jumped up. However, this fellow was completely different from the others. From the start to the end, he did not make the slightest abnormal movement. He was as calm as ever, and throughout the entire process, he had been asking about the secret realm in detail. Now he was asking about the danger. Obviously, this fellow's rationality had reached a considerable level. I'm not sure whether it's dangerous or not, so I dare not jump to conclusions. Pu Deshuang said vaguely, however, since it's a place of trial, even if it's dangerous, it won't be too much. After all, the original intention of the senior who set up this arcane realm was to let the latecomers obtain this opportunity and advance further, so that he could defend the bound of universe against the realm of demons. Yun Yang pondered for a moment and said, can I see the words that are appearing on the token now? Pu Deshuang was even more speechless. That's not a problem. This token should have been given to you directly, but because all of you will enter the arcane realm, I'm holding it for the time being. It's considered an additional layer of protection. You can take it and look at it for as long as you want. The only thing I have to remind you is that you can only stay in the arcane realm for a month. The countdown has already begun. Every quarter of an hour you spend in the outside world is equivalent to the quarter of an hour you'll lose inside, and the quarter of an hour in the arcane realm is the golden time for cultivation. You can weigh the pros and cons yourself. Yun Yang nodded faintly. Thank you for the reminder, Steward Pu. Still, he took the token over and studied it carefully. Pu Deshuang rolled his eyes. Look at it for a month if you're so capable. Yun Yang held the token and studied it carefully. Until now, the words were still appearing on it. He started from the beginning, reading each word carefully and studying it carefully. The first part of the text was the same as what Pu Deshuang had said, while the content that appeared later was basically the explanation in front. However, it was this explanation that made Yun Yang's eyes brighten. As he read, he said faintly, "After we enter, we'll go our separate ways. Everyone has their own destiny ahead of them. Take care of yourselves and keep moving forward. This realm is a trial of life and death. Each stage that everyone faces is set according to everyone's current limit. Every stage that you break through is an improvement. So, don't panic after you enter. No matter what situation you encounter, remember that the situation is something that you can handle yourself. As long as you don't give up and try your best, you'll be able to pass. Even if you encounter a situation where death is certain, try hard to recall the teachings of your masters and try different methods. The only way to survive is within the boundary of death. Do you understand? After you enter, remember not to panic if you're injured inside. What you need to do next is to find a safe place to hide. 6 hours will be enough for you to recover no matter how serious your injury is. However, remember not to expose yourself to the eyes of the mystical beasts inside. After you enter, Yun Yang had found a total of 12 key points and explained them to his disciples patiently. Everyone, including Shi Wuchen and Luo Dajiang, looked solemn as they memorized them seriously, not slacking off at all. Every word that Yun Yang said was priceless advice, a way to save their lives. Every sentence, every word was extremely important and could not be overlooked. After a quarter of an hour, Yun Yang finally raised his head and said, "Get ready, everyone. We're going in." Beside him, Pu Deshuang rolled his eyes. "What a troublemaker. Do you have to be so detailed? Most of what you said is common sense in the martial world." In spite of that, Pu Deshuang felt a little envious of the disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes. If I had such a teacher to teach me when I was learning, perhaps my achievements would be much more than what I am now, wouldn't they? Although he was impatient, Pu Deshuang also understood that the last-minute training was obviously more suitable for these young, inexperienced disciples. The things that they had memorized in this quarter of an hour were obviously very useful. Once they entered and encountered one or a few of the things Yun Yang had mentioned, or if they recalled these words when they felt helpless and wanted to give up, and used these words to guide them through the difficulty safely, then these precautions today would become an indelible mark in the hearts of these disciples for the rest of their lives. For a martial artist, such a mark in the heart would benefit them for life. Yun Yang had always been able to make use of everything to help his disciples improve or to gain enlightenment. What was especially undeniable was that every time he did this, his disciples would benefit greatly from it, and they would never forget it for the rest of their lives. Such a considerate teacher. No matter which world it was, there were far too few. While Pu Deshuang was still filled with emotions, he was surprised to see a bright light in front of him. A rainbow-colored door appeared out of thin air in front of him. A ball of green light emerged from the door and enveloped the 20 disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes in an instant. The next moment, the door disappeared abruptly. It had only been a few breaths' time. Jiang Luoluo, who was initially among the disciples, was precisely left behind. She only had time to say, "Did Jiang be careful?" She could no longer see anyone. Jiang Luoluo stood outside in shock, her lips pouting. "I'm a part of the residents of Nine Supremes too. Why am I left behind? I'm their leader's wife. Just because I didn't fight in the Celestial Luck Banner match? It's not that I don't want to fight, I really, really want to. I'm so angry." She turned and walked toward the Phoenix Cry sect. Gan Tianyin watched her disciple come over with a smile on her face. "This girl? Does she think she can sneak in? How could a fortuitous encounter be obtained by forcing it? Don't pout. We're about to start the challenge. I'm afraid you'll have to fight." Gan Tianyin smiled. "After this battle, I'll immediately set off with you to the residence of Nine Supremes. The mountain gate of the residence of Nine Supremes is also of utmost importance. We can't be careless." "Yes, master." Jiang Luoluo nodded. The Phoenix Cry sect waited for less than 2 hours before the thick fog above suddenly parted. A group of people walked down with faces full of anger and indignation. The General Commerce League has successfully challenged the superior class Celestial Luck Banner. The person who led them down was another deacon. "Brother Pu, you're still in charge here. This is the Jade Tripod sect that has been demoted to the middle class this time." Upon hearing this, the faces of everyone in the Jade Tripod sect turned gloomy. At this moment, Ping Jinyue took a step forward and said in a low voice, "The Phoenix Cry sect, the second-place sect of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, will challenge the Jade Tripod sect as usual for the position of the middle-class first seat. Deacon Pu, please host." As soon as the words came out, it was like a thunderclap that resounded over the heads of all the members of the Jade Tripod sect. F***CK, we've just been defeated, but there are still people who won't let us go? Want to beat us when we're down? Alright, I'll vent my anger on you. I'll let you know the true strength of the original superior class Celestial Luck Banner sects. The Jade Tripod sect's leader wore a twisted smile as he said through gritted teeth, "This is the rule of the Celestial Luck Banner. We, the Jade Tripod sect, will accept the challenge. Let's invite the two sect leaders up the stage." When Pu Deshuang said this, he looked at the empty space around him, thinking, how are the people from the residence of 9 Supremes now? What's going on in the secret realm? Should I wait here for them to come out? On the second level, where the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects fought, Wei Tao from the Golden Cauldron sect led his men away, swearing. The Golden Cauldron sect challenged the 7 Stars sect. 2 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. The final result was a draw with neither victory nor defeat. However, this meant that the Golden Cauldron sect could not advance to the next level. The people from the 7 Stars sect, who were lucky enough to keep their position as the chief disciple, were sweating profusely. That was close. That was really close. I didn't expect that there would be such a strong sect competing for the position of the chief disciple after being defeated by an intermediate class sect, and they almost beat us to second place. If it wasn't for the 7 Stars formation that brought us back to a draw in the 5th formation match, our 7 Stars sect would have been defeated. They were drenched in cold sweat, and there was still a lingering fear in their hearts. As the battle between the 7 Stars sect and the Golden Cauldron sect came to an end, the battle between the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects came to an end. All the sects walked out of the 5-layered mountain one after another, returning to their respective sections. However, each of them wore a complicated expression as they reminisced, the bitterness in their hearts. Thinking of the residents of 9 Supremes that had appeared out of nowhere like a shooting star and swept away all the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects, they did not know what to feel. However, the 7 Stars sect did not go back directly. We lost to the residents of 9 Supremes in the previous battle. It was such an injustice. Wu Yu gritted his teeth in anger. That's right. Our true strength is clearly above the residents of 9 Supremes. I can't swallow this no matter what. Sect leader, let's go to the residents of 9 Supremes. We must destroy this sect that has become incoherent once it succeeds. Wu Yu's face was dark. If I don't vent this anger, I won't be able to face anyone in this life. Duan Tianchong gritted his teeth and said, I have the same intention. The residents of 9 Supremes defeated us with despicable means, not because they have genuine talent. Let's go to the residents of 9 Supremes Mountain Gate and annihilate its orthodoxy. Then we'll wait for Yun Yang and the others to come back and we'll kill them directly. As long as we wipe out the residents of 9 Supremes, we'll be able to return to the middle class 3 years later. Most of the 7 Star sect's people were eager to try, but there were also a few who looked doubtful. Duan Tianchong gritted his teeth and explained again, Everyone, this may be our only chance to return to the middle class. If we let these people cultivate in the middle class for another 3 years, I'm afraid we really won't be able to take it back. The crowd nodded heavily and no one had any objections. This was the truth. The residents of 9 Supremes already possessed such strength. If they had the help of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, they would still be in the lower class for 3 years, which was twice the difference in spiritual chi. What we're doing this time is against the martial world's morality, but for the sect and for ourselves we can't care too much. Every man for himself will be destroyed by heaven and earth. On the path of cultivation, those who stand in our way will be killed without mercy. What sect leader said is reasonable. Everything is for the sake of our 7 Star sect's foundation. Let's go. There's no time to lose. Let's go. The people of the 7 Stars sect flew away majestically and rapidly. Chapter 1148. The Residents of 9 Supremes. Ever since Yun Yang and the others left, everything had gone according to plan. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened. However, the disciples in the valley were all working even harder in their cultivation. Dong Qitian stood at the highest point every day, feeling the spiritual qi washing over him in a cycle. He had even secretly appointed 100 disciples to observe the specific changes in their physiques. After this period of observation, Dong Qitian finally confirmed one thing: cultivating in the residence of 9 Supremes would really change a person's innate talent as time passed, and it was a completely optimized change. The discovery shocked Dong Qitian to the core. He knew that even the superior class Celestial Luck Banner, or even the gold class Celestial Luck Banner, did not have such a nature-defying effect. So, how did the residents of 9 Supremes do it? But on this day, It's almost been 20 days. Dong Qitian murmured to himself. The battle of the celestial luck banner is almost over, isn't it? I wonder how they've fared? Dong Qitian was looking up at the sky when he suddenly sensed something. As a cultivator, he could instantly tell that the residence of 9 Supremes was about to change. A moment later, he felt a slight tremor coming from the residence of 9 Supremes beneath his feet. It was not a large tremor at most, enough to cause ripples in a pool of clear water. An ordinary person or even an ordinary cultivator would find it difficult to sense such a feeling. However, with Dong Qitian's cultivation base he could easily tell, but he could not pinpoint the source of the vibration. This phenomenon piqued Dong Qitian's interest. As the tremor continued, Dong Qitian was shocked to find that the spiritual qi from all directions was suddenly gathering towards the residence of 9 Supremes at an unimaginably crazy frequency. Even though Dong Qitian had lived for countless years, he had never seen or even heard of such a miraculous phenomenon. As Dong Qitian's thoughts raced, he seemed to have thought of something. He sprung up quickly and went 10,000 feet up in the air. As far as his eyes could see, the spiritual qi tide was vast and boundless. Even at such a high altitude he could not see the end of it. Dong Qitian soared another 20,000 feet into the air, looking down at his surroundings from above. It was only then that he could clearly see the wide range of the current spiritual wave. However, because he had seen it clearly, he sucked in a cold breath instinctively. As far as the eye could see, all the spiritual qi within a 6,000 miles radius was gathering towards the residence of 9 Supremes. Wave after wave of seemingly substantial azure spiritual qi surged over without any signs of stopping. Looking down from the sky, the residence of 9 Supremes was already surrounded by an ocean of spiritual qi, billowing with the wind. In this world, the first wave of spiritual qi had already entered the residence of 9 Supremes, and there were still countless waves to follow, endless and endless. The gears in Dong Qitian's head spun as he shifted his attention to the situation around the residence of 9 Supremes. He saw that the dozens of hills within a 1,000-mile radius were showing signs of withering. Ordinary people might not know what this meant, but Dong Qitian knew very well that this sign meant that all the life force within this range was being drained bit by bit until the life force was completely gone and there was no more life force. With such an endless stream of spiritual qi, the aura grew stronger and stronger, unstoppable. The residence of 9 Supremes, which was located at the gathering point of the surrounding spiritual qi, had turned into an endless black hole, absorbing the spiritual qi from all directions like a whale swallowing the sea, as if it would never be satisfied. Has the celestial luck banner been obtained? Dong Qitian was a little dumbfounded. But even if it's obtained, it can't create such a huge commotion, can it? Even if the residence of 9 Supremes' original spiritual qi had already far surpassed that of ordinary lower-class celestial luck banner sects, it's still within expectations that the spiritual qi would increase by 4 times now that it has obtained the lower-class celestial luck banner. However, such a scale and such a shocking change is simply too extraordinary. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The fluctuation of the spiritual qi wave continued to increase, gradually emitting a violent howl and whine. It was getting more and more intense. The spiritual qi had only entered quietly in the beginning, but now, it was like the Milky Way was pouring in. The momentum was appalling and soul-stirring. At this moment, another beam of green light flashed in midair. Boom! A green celestial luck banner flew swiftly from the distant horizon and landed at the highest point of the residence of 9 Supreme Station. Then it stopped moving, allowing the torrential spiritual qi storm to come and go. The green celestial luck banner remained motionless. Only the flag, which was dozens of feet wide, fluttered in the wind and rattled. As the green celestial luck banner landed, the speed of the spiritual qi pouring in increased. It was already extremely fast, but now it had to be added as it flew into the residence of 9 Supremes like streaks of green dragons. Now the spiritual energy that was pouring in was no longer solid but pure and solid. Dong Qitian was completely dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. He was utterly dumbfounded. No, this is clearly a phenomenon that can only be caused by a middle-class celestial luck banner. But isn't their target the lower-class celestial luck banner this time? How did it become a middle-class one? This doesn't make sense. Could it be that this group of kids soared to middle class in one go after they went there? But how is this possible? Whether it's Yun Yang, Shi Wuchen, and the others' abilities or the abilities of their disciples, advancing to lower-class celestial luck banner is basically the limit. At most, they can only go to the lower-class intermediate class, and there's no possibility of further advancement. It's wishful thinking to even make it to the top 3 of the lower class, let alone successfully break through to the middle class. Dong Qitian was very confident in this judgment. In his opinion, the residents of Nine Supremes expedition this time would definitely obtain the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner. Moreover, the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner would not be the last place. According to his prediction, the residents of Nine Supremes could make it to the middle class of the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner, around 4th or 5th place. It was impossible for them to touch the top 3. After all, the promotion of the Celestial Luck Banner required 5 victories to be qualified to continue challenging. Although the residents of Nine Supremes' current foundation was quite impressive, reaching this point was really the limit. Any of the top 3 lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects was a solid force, and the residents of Nine Supremes was not enough to keep them in check. Not to mention becoming a lower-class chief disciple, it was an unrealistic dream to fight for a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner and take down the last place of a middle-class sect. But now, the reality was that this absolutely impossible was delivered to them with great fanfare. Dong Qitian could only smile bitterly as he watched the abundant spiritual qi pouring in like a great river flowing into the sea. But after smiling bitterly, a strong sense of excitement and indescribable emotion rose from the bottom of his heart. Dong Qitian knew one thing very well: he had actually witnessed a miracle. The original concentration of spiritual qi in the residents of Nine Supremes had far surpassed that of the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner. If the spiritual energy density of a sect with a lower-class Celestial Luck Banner was 4 times higher than that of an ordinary realm, then the spiritual energy density of a sect with a lower-class Celestial Luck Banner would be 4 times higher than that of an ordinary realm. Then, the spiritual qi atmosphere in the residents of Nine Supremes would be at least 6 times stronger. Now that the residents of Nine Supremes had been directly upgraded to a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sect, its spiritual qi density had been increased by 4 times and the basic providence increased by 2 times on top of the original foundation. In other words, the atmosphere had been increased by 6 times out of thin air. Such an increase. The spiritual qi in the residents of Nine Supremes was comparable to the spiritual qi density of a sect that was about to become an upper-class Celestial Luck Banner sect. A small sect that had just ascended to the ranks of middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sects had the same benefits as upper-class Celestial Luck Banner sections. What did this mean? Moreover, in Dong Qitian's opinion, what the residents of Nine Supremes possessed was far more than what he could see. There was also a strange force in the residents of Nine Supremes. This unique force was different from ordinary spiritual qi. It possessed a mystical effect that spiritual qi could not achieve. It could subtly change a person's aptitude. Even the Sacred Heart Palace did not possess such an effect that was beyond common knowledge. Even the East Celestial Palace, which was superior to the Sacred Heart Palace, did not possess it. This was a superpower that had never been seen since ancient times. In other words, the residents of Nine Supremes possessed a trump card that was unique in the world. Although such a sect was only a middle-class sect now, its future was already glorious and magnificent. As long as it did not fall, the height it could reach in the future was a height that even Dong Qitian dared not imagine. The Sacred Heart Palace? The East Celestial Palace? At the very least, Dong Qitian could now affirm that a sect with an upper-class Celestial Luck Banner would not be the end of the residents of Nine Supremes. Could it be that I've been imprisoned for 4,000 years and now that I'm released, I'm here to witness the birth of this legend? This is the so-called legend that goes down in history. Dong Qitian mumbled to himself. However, the next moment, looking at the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that was still surging into the residents of Nine Supremes like a green dragon, Dong Qitian suddenly remembered what he had overlooked, and his expression changed drastically. *T. As the thought flashed through his mind, Dong Qitian's body blurred and dashed into the residents of Nine Supremes as if he had crossed the void. Everything else aside, Dong Qitian's skill alone was enough to stun all the people in the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sections. It was a brilliant move that could move 10,000 miles in an instant. However, Dong Qitian was not flaunting his skill. It was because of the urgency of the situation. The moment he rushed back to the residents of Nine Supremes, the situation was as he had predicted. More than a quarter of the people in the residents of Nine Supremes looked like they were struggling in pain. Their faces were flushed and their bodies were bloated. Of course, there were also many who had built a solid foundation in the path of martial arts. They were quietly sitting cross-legged to cultivate and absorb spiritual qi. Even with Dong Qitian's vast knowledge and steady state of mind, he was at a loss for what to do when he saw the situation unfolding before him. "Senior, what should we do?" Ping Xiaoyi and Guanyang flew over looking anxious. "Senior Dong, what's going on?" Dong Qitian heaved a long sigh. This is Yun Yang's group has succeeded in seizing the Celestial Luck Banner, and what they've obtained isn't just the established lower-class Celestial Luck Banner but the higher-class middle-class Celestial Luck Banner. In other words, the residence of 9 Supremes has become a middle-class sect now. That's why there's such a massive influx of spiritual qi. This is the benefit of a Celestial Luck Banner sect. It's changing the spiritual qi environment for the residents of 9 Supremes. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanyuanyang had expected this, but they were still shocked. But isn't the extent of the spiritual qi influx a little too much? There are too many people in our sect who can't withstand such an influx of spiritual qi. Dong Qitian chuckled humorlessly. Speaking of this, I've probably guessed wrongly. I didn't expect Yun Yang's group to actually obtain the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, causing such a drastic change. However, even I can't do anything about the situation now. Ping Xiaoyi's expression changed. Even Senior can't do anything about it? Can't we just give it a try? Dong Qitian looked awkward. If there were only a handful of people or even a dozen of them, I could still try and guide the flow of spiritual qi. However, there are so many people who are being infused with spiritual qi now. There's no telling who to save or not to save. It's better to let them bear it themselves and guide themselves. If they can get through this crisis eventually, it'll be a great benefit to their mental state and cultivation journey. It's best for them to face this opportunity themselves. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanyuanyang were stunned. Deal with it themselves and endure it? This was obviously a gamble for those who were being infused with spiritual qi. Based on the current situation, would there not be a lot of people dying? Dong Qitian said in a low voice, the root cause of the current situation is that the density of spiritual qi is too thick. After going through the natural cleansing, they'll be reborn and enter the path of cultivation. These people are the fated ones. No matter what they cultivate in the future, they'll achieve twice the result with half the effort and become the cream of the crop. However, those who can't withstand such a massive amount of spiritual qi. Dong Qitian frowned as he considered his words. "'Cause what?" Both of them asked anxiously. "'Cause their meridians to rupture and their dantian to be burnt. It's a break in the path of cultivation, returning to the mundane world." Dong Qitian said solemnly. "Returning to the mundane world. Senior, do you mean that they can no longer cultivate and can only be ordinary people?" Guanyuanyang pressed. "It's better if it's only to return to the mundane world and become ordinary people. Those who can't withstand the spiritual qi will most likely self-destruct on the spot. After all, with the current strength of the spiritual qi, this outcome is already a foregone conclusion. It's hard to change it with any external force. It's futile to try and force it." Dong Qitian said, "There are too many that can't withstand it now. There's only the 3 of us. How can we take care of it all? What we should be more concerned about now is the extent of the spiritual qi that's infused into the residence of 9 Supremes. This spiritual qi is the foundation of the residence of 9 Supremes' future. We can't open the mountain guarding formation and let it disperse." Ping Xiaoyi's eyes shone. "Senior, do you mean that if the formation is opened, the concentration of the spiritual qi in the residence of 9 Supremes will be greatly reduced and the disciples will be relieved?" Guanyuanyang said, "That's right. As long as the people are still here, nothing matters. I agree with opening the mountain guarding formation to disperse the excessive spiritual qi." Dong Qitian chuckled humorlessly again. "You're thinking too simply. Even if the mountain guarding formation is open now, the spiritual qi won't disperse. The reason the spiritual qi is gathered here is mainly because of the Celestial Luck Banner at the highest point of the residence of 9 Supremes. As long as the Celestial Luck Banner is still there, it can't be uprooted nor destroyed. Opening the mountain guarding formation is no better than quenching one's thirst with poison. It's futile." Dong Qitian closed his eyes and said faintly, "Now we can only depend on each person's own fortune. If we can make it through, we'll have this opportunity and be reborn. If we can't, we'll be reduced to ashes. Of course, it's also possible that we'll have to quit the path of martial arts. This isn't something that can be changed by a mere human." Ping Xiaoyi and Guanyuanyang looked even worse as the latter murmured, "Didn't Senior say that we can still save a dozen people if we try our best? With the 2 of us, we should be able to save more people." Dong Qitian said calmly, "Since the beginning of time, there's a saying that goes like this: there's no sin one can't endure, there's only blessings one can't enjoy. And the origin of this saying is probably this kind of situation. No matter how difficult and painful the situation is, one can get through it as long as they grit their teeth and don't give up. Even if they can't, they can still take a breather. However, once the fortune is too great, many will die because they can't take it. This is life." Dong Qitian said faintly, A person's fate is predetermined. Chapter 1149. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang were dumbstruck, speechless for a moment. So that's how it is. Even the both of us are not used to such dense spiritual qi. Feels like going too far is as bad as falling short. How can ordinary people withstand it? How many of the tens of thousands of ordinary disciples can survive after this? Noticing their worries, Dong Qitian comforted them timely. Relax. From what I know about the young ones in the residence of 9 Supremes, there won't be many who can't take it. The children are young, their meridians are relatively tender, but this is the time of their lives when they bear the most burden. Moreover, the residence of 9 Supremes is a tough environment. Even if something happens, there won't be many who will die. 1,000 at most. It's those who are older and have their meridians solidified. This is the toughest stage for them. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang exchanged a look, reading each other's thoughts. They flew up together and dashed out at top speed. Dong Qitian sighed and said, "Trying your best is futile. Do you know who can take it and who can't? Perhaps your help will cause a disciple who should have been reborn from this opportunity to fall into the mundane world and lose any room for improvement. It's the same for the servants. Do you have the ability to send everyone away? Or perhaps you know who to send away?" Both of them froze. They stopped where they were, their faces bitter. Yes, who would they help even if they went out? It's better to stay put than to take action in the current situation. The key to whether they can or can't take it lies in the divergence of the critical point. Only they can feel it. Once they reach that point, if they can take it, they'll be reborn and reborn. On the other hand, if they can't take it, their mystical qi will leak out from their dantian and their cultivation path will be gone, or they'll explode and die instantly. Even if you want to help, it'll be too late by then. I said it just now. This is fate. Since fate has come, we'll fight for our lives if we do what we can. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang were stunned once more. Are we just going to watch this happen? Yes, the only thing we can do now is to wait and see what happens. Dong Qitian said pitifully, "This is the helplessness of life." This was a blessing that was hard to come by for an ordinary person, but it was also a great danger at the same time. You can't deprive them of the opportunity to meet just because of a crisis. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang heaved a long sigh into the sky, their hearts filled with complicated emotions. In the distance, a shrill scream came from afar, followed by a mist of blood rising up. That was because someone couldn't bear it and exploded and died. This wail seemed to have triggered a chain reaction. Similar wails rang out one after another. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang were drenched in cold sweat. Qian Duo rushed up like a ball with a face full of lingering fear. What happened? What happened? Ping Xiaoyi briefly explained the situation. Qian Duo, who understood the current situation, was stunned and speechless. Dong Qitian said, "What all of you should be doing now isn't spacing out or blaming others. You can only let nature take its course when it's beyond your power and you can't take care of it. This is a chance for the 3 of you as well. All 3 of you are high-ranking members of the residence of 9 Supremes. The spiritual qi cleansing this time is also an opportunity for the 3 of you. Now, make the best use of your time to cultivate in this spiritual qi tide. This time, your progress will be comparable to 10 years of usual cultivation. The 3 of you, when are you going to wait if you're not going to work hard?" "But," Dong Qitian smiled. "I'll keep an eye on some people for you. Go in peace." This time the spiritual qi tide surged crazily, and lasted for a whole 7 days. The residence of 9 Supremes had changed completely during these 7 days. Firstly, many trees grew at an insane speed that could be seen with the naked eye, growing to their strongest state in less than a day. However, they withered quickly and turned into dust. There were also some trees that grew at a relatively slow rate. They grew into towering trees and were fixed there. Many of the flowers and plants withered the moment they were washed by the spiritual qi, but the spiritual herbs were growing and spreading at an insane rate. After 7 days, there were no longer any ordinary weeds or flowers in the residence of 9 Supremes. Those that were still alive were spiritual herbs, plants, fruits, and seedlings. All of them were spiritual roots. None of the beasts in the residence of 9 Supremes survived the change, all of them dying violently. Some mystical beasts, however, advanced continuously in these 7 days. More than 1,300 of the 2,000 servants in the residence of 9 Supremes had died after 7 days, while nearly 1,000 of the 10,000 disciples had exploded and died after the spiritual qi tide. In other words, more than 2,000 people in the residence of 9 Supremes had perished in this event. Compared to those who had died, those who survived had gone through more than one round of cleansing. Some of them had even shed more than one layer of their skin and hair. Although Dong Qitian said that it was up to fate, most of his attention was still on the residents of Nine Supremes' residence. The family members of the Demiurge Flawed 10 were basically all here. As the family members of the Demiurge Flawed 10, they naturally had a certain level of cultivation foundation. Coupled with Dong Qitian's protection, there were no problems and they survived the ordeal. Like Dong Qitian had said, there was a limit to one's strength. Even Dong Qitian could not protect everyone in the residence of Nine Supremes alone. The residence of Nine Supremes had undergone a complete makeover after this incident, but many people had disappeared forever. Not only did Yun Yang not expect this, even Dong Qitian, a knowledgeable old demon who had lived for God knows how many years, did not expect this. 7 days later, the residence of Nine Supremes was enveloped in an unusually somber atmosphere. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang had advanced a level each, ascending to second-class Saint King intermediate level. It was a delightful achievement, but neither of them was overjoyed. After confirming that the spiritual chi tide had ended, they moved all the dead bodies out at once and buried them in a nearby valley. Looking at the giant tombstone, both of them were speechless for a long time. Who would have thought that such a great thing would cause deaths and so many of them in one go? Both of them sighed. They recalled Dong Qitian's words. There is no sin one cannot endure, only blessings one cannot enjoy. We'll deal with it when boss returns. Both of them turned to leave. After the spiritual chi tide, Dong Qitian examined the remaining disciples of the residence of Nine Supremes again and was shocked to find that all the disciples who had survived the spiritual chi tide were gifted and could be said to be the cream of the crop. Many of them had even reached the bone foundation level of the top 10 disciples back then. This luck really makes people envious and jealous. Dong Qitian retracted his mental energy quietly. More than 2,000 people have reached that standard. If I didn't see it with my own eyes and investigate it personally, how can I believe it? Even the East Celestial Palace doesn't have so many genius seedlings with such numbers and talents. Such a situation wouldn't happen with just the spiritual chi tide. This means that the mystical force in the spiritual chi tide has also exerted a stronger effect. But what's the reason? Yun Yang is obviously not here, but it can still activate on its own. The various mysteries of the residence of Nine Supremes? I really can't see through them. As he mumbled to the last sentence, Dong Qitian could not help feeling amused. He had lived in the residence of Nine Supremes for so long, yet he had not noticed anything. He was speechless. If word got out and those who knew him knew about this, they would probably laugh themselves to death. On the third day after the spiritual chi tide stopped, something happened again. Outside the residence of Nine Supremes, a group of uninvited guests had arrived. With a loud bang, the mountain guarding formation shook from the sudden impact. A ferocious voice followed, "People in the residence of Nine Supremes, listen up. Open the mountain guarding formation as soon as possible and let us in. Everything can be discussed. Otherwise, the mountain guarding formation will be broken and no one will be spared." The Seven Stars sect had come to seek revenge. Chapter 1150. Dong Qitian squinted his eyes when he heard the clamor. A hint of delight flashed across his face. F***ck me? Someone's here to look for trouble? Great, great, great. Just in time. I've been so stifled lately that my balls are aching. I've been frustrated with the return of the massive spiritual chi drawn by the middle-class celestial luck banner. My strength is limited and I can't do anything about it. I've been feeling vexed. Now that an ignorant fellow has come knocking on my door to relieve my boredom, how can I not feast on him? It's true that one's strength is limited at times, but my strength is not at all limited compared to most people and things in this world. Everyone else don't move. Do what you should be doing. They're just a few flies, insignificant. Dong Qitian said cheerfully, "Xiaoyi and Nuanyang, let's go out and take a look." Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang followed Dong Qitian out excitedly. Both of them were excited as well. They did not go to the Pentapeak Celestial Luck Banner battle this time and had stayed at home to watch over things. Naturally, they were as idle as Dong Qitian. Secondly, their cultivation base had improved tremendously after the incident and they were eager to fight a few battles. Thirdly, they knew very well that Dong Qitian's ability was shockingly powerful, beyond their understanding. Now that his cultivation base had improved tremendously, they still felt that Dong Qitian's cultivation base was extraordinarily high and beyond their understanding. With such a super powerhouse as their backing, what kind of enemy could they not handle? That was why they only felt the excitement of fighting the enemy, not a hint of panic, fear, or any other negative emotions. Outside the residence of Nine Supremes Mountain Gate, 7-star sect's leader, Duan Tianchong, stared at the mountain gate with his arms behind his back. Even through the mountain gate's formation, he could still feel the massive amount of spiritual qi within. His eyes were already filled with uncontrollable greed and desire. After the residents of Nine Supremes successfully ascended to the middle-class celestial luck banner, the spiritual qi within the mountain gate is so abundant. It's so much denser than when our mountain gate was at its peak. When the residents of Nine Supremes orthodoxy is wiped out later, perhaps we can consider moving the mountain gate here and set up our sect's defensive formation here. Even if Yun Yang and the rest come back for revenge, we won't have to worry. Wu Yu was also very tempted by the residents of Nine Supremes' spiritual qi. Duan Tianchong nodded and said, "Pass down the order. Once we enter later, it's fine to kill and take their lives, but we must do our best not to destroy the facilities. Right, remember to leave a few people to interrogate and investigate the background of Yun Yang and the others. Don't kill them all. Don't worry, sect leader. We'll be careful." At this moment, a mocking voice rang out, "You're just a bunch of thieves who are ignorant and narrow-minded. You can't even break our mountain guarding formation or enter the mountain gate, yet you're talking about occupying the residents of Nine Supremes' territory? Do you think you're worthy?" Upon hearing this, Duan Tianchong and the others snorted coldly and turned their heads to look inside the mountain gate. A vague silhouette quietly appeared. However, under the light of the spiritual energy, the silhouette's appearance could not be seen clearly. What can the residents of Nine Supremes, which has just been established, do? Are the people of the residents of Nine Supremes going to seal their doors for the rest of their lives and never come out? Wu Yu said faintly, "The mountain guarding formation of the residents of Nine Supremes does have some tricks up its sleeves, but it's only because we don't want to destroy it by force. If you open it on your own, we can still spare a few lives on account of this. If you don't know what's good for you and provoke us, there'll be no survivors after we storm in. Think carefully." The person who spoke was none other than Ping Xiaoyi. The vicious physician's cultivation base had suddenly skyrocketed, and he was now at a delicate moment of extreme confidence. He cackled when he heard the words and said, all right, I'd like to see what you lot are capable of to speak so boldly. Aren't all of you afraid that your tongues will be cut by the wind?" As he spoke, he was about to open the mountain gate and rush out to satisfy himself. However, Dong Qitian, who was beside him, was displeased. It was not that old Dong was displeased with Ping Xiaoyi's recklessness, of course, it was also because he was displeased with Ping Xiaoyi's action. King Hell, it's rare to have a few people to relieve my boredom. How dare you steal my job? Don't move. Dong Qitian stopped Ping Xiaoyi with a dark expression. Ping Xiaoyi was speechless. The enemy is right in front of us. How can we be careless? Let this old man do it myself, Dong Qitian said solemnly. Guanuanyang had already gone into stealth mode, ready to assassinate at any time. According to his judgment, there was no lack of experts among the group, with a few of them having cultivation bases higher than his or Ping Xiaoyi's, but it was not a difficult task for him to kill any one of their strongest experts with their arrogance and condescension, in addition to Guanuanyang's unpredictability. However, when he heard Dong Qitian say that he would do it himself, he could not help revealing himself at once. You're going to do it yourself? Just these few people in front of you? They're people that even I have the confidence to kill. You're obviously snatching our job. In spite of this, both Guanuanyang and Ping Xiaoyi knew that Dong Qitian's hostility had been growing stronger recently. The recent change in the spiritual qi tide had made Dong Qitian exclaim that there was such a change in this world that was beyond his ability. Ever since he was rescued that day, he instantly knew that 4,300 years had passed. Later on, he was so close to his hometown that he did not dare to go back. With great difficulty, he mustered up the courage to go back and take a look, only to discover that his hometown had changed beyond recognition. The small mountain village that his family used to live in had now become a huge canyon. His home used to be on the mountain. Now it had become a canyon. Had the earth's crust changed with the passage of time? Elder Dong was frustrated, but he had no one to talk about it. Even when Yun Yang asked about it, he could only answer vaguely. During this period of time he sneaked a look again. It was confirmed that it was not caused by some expert's fight, but by the earth's crust. The other side of the slanting valley was connected to the ocean. The world had truly changed, the consecutive realities made Dong Qitian feel powerless. Even if he wanted to seek revenge, he did not even have an enemy. Was he supposed to seek revenge from the heavens? He had been suppressing it forcefully for such a long time. It was only when he saw the residence of 9 Supreme's young fellows growing like flowers that he felt a little comforted. However, no matter how comforted he was, the depression in his heart was still there, never to be vented. In spite of this, there was nowhere to vent in a wretched place like the residence of 9 Supremes. Who should he look for? Even if it was Yun Yang who had the highest cultivation base, a slap from him would probably leave a human skin on the ground and still be intact. Now that the 7-star sect had come looking for him, it was a welcome rain after a long drought for Dong Qitian. He had finally found a way to vent his frustration. How could he allow Ping Xiaoyi and Guan Yuanyang to act first and spoil his fun with such a godsend? The people of 7-star sect who were outside the residence of 9 Supreme's mountain gate waited for a while, hesitating whether to attack the mountain gate's formation or not. Suddenly they saw the thick fog at the mountain gate vanish, and then the mountain gate opened abruptly. At the same time, a gush of extremely pure spiritual qi gushed out from the entrance. The 7-star sect members had only taken a whiff before they felt refreshed, as if they had lightened by a few caddies. It's a treasured land indeed. The 7-star sect people's hearts were filled with joy. Without any hesitation they swarmed into the cave. The people in the residence of 9 Supremes are simply too stupid. The mountain guarding formation you've set up at the mountain gate is so intricate that it's difficult for us to charge in. Even if we can break it, it'll take a long time. Time is our biggest enemy. If it's delayed until Yun Yang and his men return, it'll be the beginning of our nightmare. Now, however, you've opened it yourself. Do you really think we'll show mercy when we enter? We're just saying it, but there are actually people who believe us. What are they if not fools? We, the 7-star sect, deserve to have this treasured land. It's only a matter of time before we return to the intermediate class of the Celestial Luck Banner or even advance further. Perhaps the defeat in the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner this time was not a nightmare but an opportunity, a great opportunity for the 7-star sect to rise again. Upon entering, one could see auspicious mist everywhere, enshrouded by auspicious clouds, spiritual trees, mystical fruits and treasures of heaven and earth. On both sides of the road, rows of iron pines towered into the sky, but these iron pines alone could be used as excellent materials for forging divine weapons. But here they were probably the most common greening plants. What a great place! Duan Tianchong was already fascinated, unable to extricate himself from it. Who would have thought that the residence of 9 Supremes, which had just been promoted to the intermediate class of the Celestial Luck Banner for less than 10 days, would have such an atmosphere? The accompanying disciples were also looking around with excitement. This place, it's great. And why does it occupy such a large area? It's said that the residence of 9 Supremes has just been established, so how did it become such a huge place? Our 7-star sect has been established for tens of thousands of years, but our headquarters is still so small. Look at this place, it's so grand, so classy, so pleasing to the eye, so refreshing. And these will be ours in the future, all for the 7-star sect's use. This place is good, isn't it? A voice came leisurely. Duan Tianchong and the others looked in the direction of the voice, only to see an old man standing in front of them. It was not appropriate to call him an old man. He looked like he was 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, or even 600 years old. They could not tell how old he was, but he was looking at them with a kind face and spoke with a smile, his attitude extremely amiable. Is this a friendly gesture, hoping that we can be merciful and less bloodthirsty in the future? You're thinking too much, old man. That's right. Duan Tianchong said, and you are? The old man smiled with his eyes squinted. You country bumpkins have never seen such a good place, have you? What? Duan Tianchong was taken aback by this sudden statement. This old man, he said this with a smile and an amiable tone. His mood and the context were completely opposite. It made me feel extremely uncomfortable. What do you think you are? A disciple with a face full of anger loudly shouted, Old thing, who are you? You dare to talk nonsense like this? Do you know who the people in front of you are? The old man chuckled and said, This old man looks down on you because you've just arrived and you look like you've never seen the world before. You don't look like ordinary people, but you actually look like country bumpkins. With one look I can tell that you're not presentable. As for what kind of people you are, this old man really doesn't care about that. The 7-star sect people, you're just a bunch of country bumpkins bastards. After coming here, you've already lost your sense of direction, right? You're not here to find a prostitute, are you? Looking at your dissatisfied face, this old man's guess is correct. But you look like a pile of shit. Even if you take the initiative to take off your pants, someone would be interested, right? The old man's face was always full of smiles, but his words were getting more and more vicious. The insulting and vicious words rained down like a barrage of cannons. Before the people in front could digest it, the ones behind them were already more vicious. You old thing. Old B*****. Old B*****. The crowd trembled in anger, their words incoherent. A few impulsive ones were about to step forward to beat him up. The old man suddenly turned furious. How dare the few of you form karmic ties with me? The crowd? How dare you scold me in front of my face? Dong Qitian hollered, his voice stern. It's already an unpardonable crime for you to insult me. Moreover, you've come here with ill intentions, shouting about killing and wanting to steal our sex foundation for your own use. It's all clear to me that I can't let you go no matter what. As he spoke, his face relaxed again as if he finally found an excuse to attack. He was happy, relaxed, and at ease. Old B*****, old B*****, old B*****, old B*****. The crowd cursed continuously, each of them so angry that their mouths were twisted. No rush. We outnumber him. Let's vent our anger by scolding him first. This old B**** is so infuriating today. How can I vent my anger by killing him? The old man sneered. Good. Now that all of you have scolded me, I can't let you live. Before his voice died away, the old man quietly took a step forward. There was no noise from the ground. There was no movement from the mountain peak either. However, everyone in the seven-star sect felt the earth tremble and the mountains shake as if heaven and earth had been turned upside down at this moment. Everything was clearly the same as before, but at this moment, the old man in front of him had completely and utterly transformed into a demon god. 2 is 1 today. Continuing with the infusion. Tomorrow will be the last day of infusion. Tonight's temperature, 37 degrees, has dropped. Genius. 1 second to remember this website's address. Mobile version. Chapter 1151. The people of Seven-Star Sect, on the other hand, were horrified to feel that they were just ants before this old man, ants that could only be trampled, crushed to death with a finger. An unprecedented pressure that he had never felt before came crashing down. The group of 20 people from Seven-Star Sect, regardless of their cultivation base, had only one feeling. They could not support their bodies as their knees buckled and they fell heavily to the ground. He did not even move, but with his aura alone, he had completely overwhelmed them without the slightest resistance. Regardless of their cultivation base, whether it was Wu Yu who had the highest cultivation base or the junior disciples who had the lowest cultivation base. What kind of cultivation base was this? What kind of cultivation base was this to be able to achieve this? When Duan Qiansheng's mind cleared up, he was aghast and panicked. He immediately realized that this time, the Seven-Star Sect had kicked an iron plate. The old man in front of him, at the very least, had the cultivation base of a holy master. Residents of 9 Supremes, since you have such an unparalleled expert, you could have exposed it. Why didn't you? As long as you did, the battle for the Celestial Luck Banner would be a joke. Not to mention a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, even if you said it would go straight to upper class, no one would say anything. This was an expert who was at least a Supreme Saint. Oh my God, it turns out that encountering the residents of 9 Supremes and losing was not a nightmare, but the beginning of it. No one else could have such an opportunity, but it was the fate of Seven-Star Sect's destruction. Senior. Duan Tianchong shouted with all his might, This is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I'm scolding you for your own good. It's your fate, your good fortune. However, not only did you not appreciate it, you even dared to scold me. That means you've formed a karmic bond with me. How can I ignore the karmic bond? How can my thoughts be clear? Dong Qitian said earnestly, Don't worry, I won't go too far. If each of you takes a palm from me and survives, then so be it. Whether you survive or not, all grudges and karmic bonds will be written off. It's simple, straightforward. Everyone in Seven-Star Sect was drained of all color, a deathly stillness enveloping them. What a good, whether I survive or not, all grudges and karma will be written off. What you're saying is the truth. You're being very honest. The karma of those who survived would be written off, and the karma of those who didn't survive would also be written off. No matter how powerful you are, you can't go to the netherworld to settle the score with us again, can you? But, who among us can withstand your palm? From top to bottom, everyone from the Seven-Star Sect began to plead and flatter him. It was a pity that Dong Qitian paid no heed to it at all. He stretched out his hand excitedly, and Wu Yu, who had the highest cultivation base among the Seven-Star Sect's people, floated up like a piece of cotton. Unable to move an inch, he floated to Dong Qitian. Dong Qitian raised his hand gently, ignoring Wu Yu's pleading gaze as he slapped him lightly. Then, with a loud bang, the top expert of the Seven Stars sect soared into the sky in a spiral shape, passing through the highest point of the residence of Nine Supreme's defensive formation and heading towards the direction of the sun in a slanted manner. His speed was at its peak. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a black dot, a shooting star. Duan Tianchong and the others stared into the distance, their faces filled with sorrow, despair, and frustration. Wu Yu, who was flying at top speed in the sky, had already tried all the secret skills he had learned, but to no avail. Instead, he flew faster and faster, his momentum never slowing down. The force of the slap had only spread from his cheek to his entire body. After flying for a while, he could not even blink his eyes. His entire body had turned into an ice sculpture, and his life had left his body. Dong Qitian's slap became increasingly high-spirited and enthusiastic, completely ignoring the cries of misunderstanding and mercy, as he grabbed them one by one, giving them a slap. It was loud and crisp. Therefore, people flew into the air one after another like peerless experts gliding through the air, flying to the faraway shore. Dong Qitian was like a playboy who never got tired of it, grabbing one by one and sending them flying with a slap. A slap sent them flying again. He was so forceful, so attentive. It was as if he wanted to turn all his worries into nothingness with each slap. It was only when the last person from the Seven Stars sect had turned from a kneeling position into a flying person that Dong Qitian heaved a long sigh and said, "Satisfying. Satisfying." Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang came out together when they saw that the farce had come to an end, but their faces were pale. "Senior, this." Both of them were truly resentful. It was not easy for them to come looking for trouble. "Both of us are guarding the sect. This is what we do. You call yourself the chief instructor, but you're not actually from our sect. Why are you here to cause trouble? Can't you have some sense of civility and responsibility? The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Was it not used here?" Dong Qitian said seriously, "These people probably came to occupy the residence of Nine Supremes when Yun Yang and the others weren't around, so they couldn't return to their homes. Such people are the most despicable and hateful. The martial world's rule is that one shouldn't bring trouble to one's family. Scoundrels like this who can't defeat others outside but vent their anger in the other party's home for their own selfish desires are the most despicable. Don't let people like this go if you meet them in the future. I'm only doing it out of righteous indignation and to end the karmic ties between us. You don't have to thank me." Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang were exhausted. "Of course we understand this logic. Also, how can you tell that we're grateful to you? Elder Dong, we're actually not very concerned about where these people are from. You always say that a small clue can tell a big picture. Just by looking at their extraordinary cultivation base, the one with the highest cultivation base is even higher than both of us, and the resentment in their mouths, it's not difficult to tell that they're from the Celestial Luck Banner sect that lost to the Supreme Leader in the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner." Guo Nuanyang was dismayed. "But Elder Dong, why did you slap all of them away? You must know that since these people are originally from high-class Celestial Luck Banner sects, they must have a lot of treasures with them. They came to our house looking for trouble and we killed them. All of their belongings are ours, but you just slapped them all away." Ping Xiaoyi was stomping his feet as well. "That's right, Elder Dong. Those slaps of yours must have taken away hundreds of millions of wealth at the most conservative estimate. No, it's probably more than that." Dong Qitian snorted and said, "What are you talking about? Your father did it to end the karmic ties between us. That's your father's personal grudge. What's wrong with that? This is normal. This is how it should be." His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when he'd already vanished without a trace. "These two little bastards. I was the one who helped them solve their problem, but they're blaming me instead. Is there any justice left in this world? Even if your cultivation base has improved and you're capable of dealing with this group of people, how could you do it so cleanly? Good intentions don't go unrewarded. Although I did slap away a huge amount of wealth, I only cared about my own pleasure. But did your father forget? It's just a small matter. Do you have to do this?" Somewhere in the distant sky, Gan Tianyan led Jiang Luoluo above the clouds, traveling swiftly through the fog. "Master, the residence of Nine Supremes Mountain Gate is just beyond this hill." Jiang Luoluo pointed to the front. Unexpectedly, Gan Tianyan's expression changed abruptly. She said in a focused tone, "There's an expert in front." The speed of the person is rarely seen. Sensing that something was amiss, both master and disciple dodged quickly. However, it seemed like it was too late. The person was moving forward in an extremely strange and awkward manner, spiraling at an appalling speed that formed a spatial crack around his body. With unparalleled speed, the newcomer charged head-on towards Gan Tianyan. Gan Tianyan was enraged, her willowy brows raised. "You're so unreasonable." Before he could finish his sentence, the person still didn't waver in the slightest as he brazenly rammed into him. Gan Tianyan took a deep breath and extended both of his hands, grabbing out. Rainbow Phoenix Heaven Mending Hand. This was the Phoenix Cry sect's secret technique, and only Gan Tianyan and the sect leader Ping Zhanyue could master it. No matter what kind of attack she faced, even if it was a powerful opponent who was a level higher than her, Gan Tianyan could ensure that she would not lose any of the opponent's attacks. The speed of the newcomer's attack was already shockingly fast, but the newcomer's attack was even more strange. He completely ignored the strong resistance of the Rainbow Phoenix Sky Mending Hand and used his head to block Gan Tianyan's hand, then pushed forward with even more force. Gan Tianyan was shocked. What kind of skill is this? What kind of fighting style is this? Gan Tianyan did not know what was going on, so she naturally gathered all her strength and pushed the person with all her might. However, she still felt a chill on her palm. The force coming from the person's head was so strong that she could not help but be pushed back. But this wasn't all that surprising. While the other party's head was forcefully charging forward, it was also constantly spinning against his palm. What kind of strange skill is this? How can the head continuously spin in one direction? Gan Tianyan focused her mind and looked at the person. She saw that the person's long hair was loose, his body was spinning, and his face was occasionally revealed. A pair of dead fish-like eyes stared at Gan Tianyan. "Wu." Gan Tianyan recognized the person and was so surprised that she almost shouted. When did Wu Yu's cultivation become so strong? And when did he cultivate such a strange skill? While she was thinking, she felt that the person's pushing force seemed to have weakened. Gan Tianyan shouted angrily and grabbed the person's head with one hand. She circulated the power of the heaven and earth cage to the limit, fixing the shackles, and then pushed back. She thought to herself, no matter how strange your skill is, even if the head is a vital point, I will directly crush it. Let's see how you can be fierce then. Unexpectedly, the person's head was grabbed by her and shackled by the power of the heaven and earth cage, but his body was still spinning. In just an instant, Gan Tianyan watched as the person's neck was twisted 17 or 18 times, and then with a snap, it broke on its own. A head was in her hand, and the body actually maintained the spinning momentum, spitting out blood as it fell. What the f***ck? Gan Tianyan, who had been gentle and pleasant all her life and was known as an icy beauty, completely lost control and burst out with vulgarities. Such powerful strength, such terrifying speed. In the end, the person's head spun in her hand? She couldn't help but loosen her grip, and Wu Yu's head fell to the ground. Then she thought of something and hurriedly reached out to suck the head back. She resisted the nausea and opened her eyes. But she saw that Wu Yu's eyes were still staring like a dead fish without any luster. Wu Yu, he's actually already dead? Gan Tianyan was shocked again. She loosened her grip, and Wu Yu's head fell weakly to the ground for the second time. Wu Yu was killed long ago and that person just casually threw his body out. But what kind of expert would be able to cause such a terrifying force? At this moment, Gan Tianyan shuddered with fear and trepidation. There was actually such an expert in this world, and she was already in existence above the clouds. But how much higher and how far was she from the person who made the move? She turned to look and couldn't help but shiver. Where's Luo Luo? Just as she was looking, she saw Jiang Luo Luo fly up from below, holding a space ring in her hand. She looked at it fondly in her hand. Master, Wu Yu is a martial saint after all, there should be some good things in there. The corner of Gan Tianyan's mouth twitched. This money-grubber disciple, do you know the background of the person who killed Wu Yu? You're acting so rashly to take benefits. But before she could say anything, another person in front of her, like a whirlwind, crashed into Gan Tianyan. Gan Tianyan had learned her lesson this time. She didn't use any techniques, but directly used her hand and thick mystical energy to block it. As expected, although the other party's momentum was fierce, the momentum was not enough. After a moment of rotation, his head turned on its own. Just like Wu Yu, he was long dead. When Gan Tianyan saw the face of the person, she was surprised. Duan Tianchong, the #1 expert of the Seven Stars sect as well as their sect leader, unexpectedly died here, and even their corpses were being kited. However, the surprise was far from over. One by one, the corpses of the Seven Stars sect's experts who went to the 5th layer of heaven to participate in the Celestial Luck Banner contest arrived. Gan Tianyin caught them one by one until she was numb. Jiang Luoluo was in high spirits. Not only did she receive a lot of space rings, but she also received 2 space bracelets. I'm rich, I'm rich. Jiang Luoluo was extremely happy. Master, there are a total of 22 space props. Gan Tianyin was speechless. 22 was the number of people who participated in the Celestial Luck Banner contest. In other words, all of them without exception were killed. Not only were they killed, they were also kite and their heads were twisted off by their own hands. What exactly was going on? Chapter 1152. Gan Tianyin was puzzled. What kind of deity had the Seven Stars sect offended? These 22 people were the absolute elites of the Seven Stars sect. Once they died, the Seven Stars sect was basically annihilated. The remaining people would never be able to support the Seven Stars sect's foundation. There were the number 1 expert, the number 2 expert, the number 1 elder, the number 1 priest, the sect leader, the leading disciple, the head of the enforcement hall, and the core seed disciple. What else could the Seven Stars sect have other than these people? What kind of combat power could they have? However, Gan Tianyin could not care less about the Seven Stars sect now. She was only thinking about who the hell had the Seven Stars sect defended? How could they have suffered such a crushing defeat and be completely annihilated? Jiang Luoluo stood aside, looking at the cloudy front and murmuring, "The direction they're flying from is the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes." The words were soft. However, in Gan Tianyin's ears, it was like thunder rumbling in the 9 heavens. For a moment she felt like she was seeing stars. She forced herself to calm down and said with some confusion, "The residence of 9 Supremes? Could it be the residence of 9 Supremes?" Jiang Luoluo stammered, "I think it should be." Gan Tianyin's eyes went blank for a moment before she said, Yes, the biggest enemy of the residence of 9 Supremes is now the Seven Stars sect. As for the other lower-class sects that were defeated by the residence of 9 Supremes, the difference in strength is too great, so they probably won't dare to come. The Seven Stars sect has ended their battle long ago and came here. This makes sense, but the main force of the residence of 9 Supremes has not returned. Could it be Yun Yang's master? For a moment, Gan Tianyin thought of this possibility and could not help but break out in a cold sweat. It seemed like this was the only possibility. What was more frightening was that the people of the Seven Stars sect did not have a single injury on them, only a palm print on their faces. They were slapped to death and thrown out? What level of cultivation base was this? Looking at the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes in the distance, Gan Tianyin actually hesitated, not knowing if she should go. It was so dangerous. However, even if the situation was unclear and there might be danger ahead, he still had to make a trip there. First of all, Phoenix Cry sect's leader, Ping Zhanyue, had promised Yun Yang that she would assist the residents of 9 Supremes after the Celestial Luck Banner contest. Encountering battles and dangers was expected. At most, it would be a so-called battle in the original plan. The so-called dangers could not really pose a threat. Secondly, the tragic deaths of Duan Tianchong, Wu Yu, and the others from the Seven Stars sect came from the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes, which meant that there might be a great ominous person in the residence of 9 Supremes. However, if this great ominous person belonged to the residence of 9 Supremes and annihilated the Seven Stars sect to protect the residence of 9 Supremes, then this ominous person would not be valid for Gan Tianyin or the Phoenix Cry sect. Instead, it would be a great benefit. Based on these two considerations, Gan Tianyin decided to maintain his original intention and fly straight to the residence of 9 Supremes with Jiang Luoluo. However, he could not help but feel a little uneasy. It did not take long for both of them to arrive at the mountain gate of the residence of 9 Supremes. After reporting their identities, the mountain gate opened immediately and both master and disciple entered smoothly. From the moment they entered, Gan Tianyin immediately lost her composure. Was this the residence of 9 Supremes that had just obtained the Celestial Luck Banner a few days ago? How was this possible? This spiritual atmosphere, it was more than twice as dense as the Phoenix Cry sects. No, perhaps it should be said that the spiritual atmosphere was a few times denser. What was going on here? Who can give me an explanation and clear my doubts? Ah, sister-in-law, you're back. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang came forward to greet her, exchanging pleasantries and expressing their closeness. Jiang Luoluo was a prominent personage in the residence of 9 Supremes. Other than being the fiancée and future daughter-in-law of Luo Dajiang, the residence of 9 Supremes' third-in-command, she was also the only female representative in the residence of 9 Supremes. After Yun Yang, her words carried a lot of weight. Little Yi Nuanyang, how have you been? This is my master. Afraid that both of them would misunderstand, Jiang Luoluo quickly introduced. Boss Yun has won the battle of the Celestial Luck Banner at Mount Pentatir this time. He's shown brilliantly, overcoming all obstacles along the way and finally taking down the 7 Stars sect that's originally at the bottom of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, replacing it and advancing it to a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner. He's also been given the opportunity to further his training at Mount Pentatir, so he'll need some time before he can return. I'm not from the residence of 9 Supremes, so I can't follow him. Overcoming all obstacles like this has also created a hidden danger of making a lot of enemies. My master was worried about me coming back alone, so he came with me to help out. Both of them were quick-witted people. Jiang Luoluo's explanation was enough for both of them to understand. Of course, it was also because Dong Qitian had analyzed beforehand that Yun Yang and the others must have obtained a higher-level Celestial Luck Banner this time. Both of them had a vague idea of what was going on. There was also the ambush in front of the 7 Stars sect. Thank you, Senior Gan, for your benevolence. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang bowed deeply. It was one thing to have the ability to handle it, but it was another when someone else was willing to come and help. Gan Qinyan's willingness to come was a huge favor. Even if he did not contribute, he still had to appreciate it. You're welcome. Gan Tianyin was not in the mood to be courteous now. His eyes had long lost track of where to look. Was this the residence of 9 Supremes? Not to mention that it was a small sect that had not even been established for a year, but with its scale, how could it be considered a small sect? The land it occupied was so vast, almost 10 times that of the Phoenix Cry sect's mountain gate. Not only was it vast, but how could the spiritual qi here be so dense and viscous? Such a spiritual qi atmosphere was so dense that ordinary people would not be able to withstand just one breath. Gan Tianyin casually swept a few glances and was shocked by what she saw. In the soil on both sides of the road, there were traces of tender white plant buds that seemed to be doing their best to burrow out of the soil. There were also countless lush spirit plants that had already stretched out their bodies and were swaying in the wind. Oh my God, those are obviously treasures of heaven and earth. How can they grow so fast? Gan Tianyin looked at the sprouts that were growing all over the place. Although they were still in their nascent stage and had not lived for long, they were all genuine spiritual roots, spiritual plants, spiritual herbs, spiritual sprouts, and spiritual sprouts. Not a single one of them was ordinary. Thinking about how the spiritual qi in the residence of 9 Supremes was so abundant, how could these treasures of heaven and earth not grow crazily and grow as time went by? As long as there was a little time, the tens of thousands of acres of land would be filled with spiritual herbs? All of them would be treasures of heaven and earth? Gan Tianyin almost fainted at the thought of this possibility. It was just that Gan Tianyin suddenly understood why the disciples of the Sacred Heart Palace and the Eastern Celestial Palace could improve so quickly in their cultivation base when they came to visit a sect that was on par with her own sect, or even 2 levels lower than her own sect. Although she had known the reason before, she had not been qualified to visit the spiritual herb gardens, their halls and palaces back then. She had not seen the shocking gap in her imagination with her own eyes, thus it was difficult for her to truly understand it. Now that she had seen the residence of 9 Supremes with her own eyes, Gan Tianyin could only sigh. There's really no comparison. Gan Tianyin instinctively recalled the setup that Yun Yang had made in response to Qi Lai's provocation. Recalling the hateful gazes of the 10 disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes, she sighed deeply again. Qi Lai was doomed. Just as they entered the residence of 9 Supremes' mountain gate, Gan Tianyin was certain that Qi Lai was doomed. It went without saying what kind of improvement those geniuses would have when they cultivated in such an environment. Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang introduced the environment as they led the way, accompanying Gan Tianyin and her disciple to the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes' main palace. Gan Tianyin was the great elder of the Phoenix Cry sect. He was a high-ranking authority in the sect that was second only to one. Since the relationship between the two sects had improved, Ping Xiaoyi and Guo Nuanyang had to treat him with utmost courtesy. The higher the group went, the thicker the spiritual qi became. Gradually it turned from thick to thick. Have there been any ignorant rascals who came looking for trouble these few days? Gan Tianyin asked. There really hasn't been any. Ping Xiaoyi thought about it. Trouble? There really wasn't. Even if Elder Dong was here, it wouldn't be considered a problem. Gan Tianyin had obviously misunderstood. Her train of thought had deviated from her original plan. She nodded and said, "That's good, that's good." As they spoke, a group of little girls and boys walked down from the mountain peak in a neat line. Each and every one of them was adorned with pink and jade-like makeup, causing one to be extremely fond of them at first glance. The clothes of this group of children were rather messy, and it was obvious that they had gone through a lot to get here. However, it could also be seen that each of them had tried their best to tidy themselves up, so although the traces were obvious, they did not look too shabby. Some of the children's young faces were still bruised and swollen, but all of them kept a straight face and said nothing. Seeing the group approaching, the group of children moved to the side of the path under their leader's order. They greeted Ping Xiaoyi and the others with a bow, asking them to go first. The more Gan Tianyin looked at them, the more she liked them. Each of these little fellows is incredible. When I took Luo Luo in as my disciple, she was probably like this, wasn't she? Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. All of them have similar qualities? Gan Tianyin's heart was filled with tenderness when she saw a little girl with tears in her eyes and pouting lips, looking aggrieved. She lowered her head and asked softly, "What's wrong?" The little girl raised her head stubbornly and held back her tears. Her lips were pouting and she did not speak. A strong-looking little boy at the side pouted and said, "What can this be? She lost. It's fine if she can't win, but she still has the cheek to cry." Shameless, the little girl finally could not help but cry. "How am I shameless? I don't want to lose either, but this is the third time I've lost. A momentary loss is just yesterday. Remember your mistakes and don't repeat them again. If you lose today, you can fight back tomorrow. Just win. Know your shame and then be brave. Nothing is better." The little boy leading the group scoffed as he spoke in an adult tone. The corner of his mouth that was swollen from the beating hurt. He grimaced in pain and spat out a mouthful of blood-stained spittle, showing some of his ruthlessness. Gan Tianyin was very interested. "You guys got hurt in a fight during training? Your teacher doesn't blame you?" The 20 little fellows looked dejected. "We haven't acknowledged him as our teacher." Sigh. They actually sighed in melancholy. "We fight to acknowledge him as our teacher. How can we be qualified if we don't win? Know your shame and then be brave." "We know our shame now, but we're still not brave enough." Gan Tianyin was shocked again when she heard the childish words. They were a bunch of children with such great potential, but they did not even have the right to acknowledge someone as their teacher? If this was an ordinary sect or even a lower-class celestial luck banner sect, the higher-ups and elders in the sect would probably snatch them away. Why did they have to fight before they had the right to acknowledge someone as their teacher here? Ping Xiaoyi interrupted and asked, "Which team do you belong to?" "Sir." These little fellows obviously knew Ping Xiaoyi. When they answered Ping Xiaoyi's question, they puffed up their chests and straightened their backs. Their spirits were refreshed as well. "We're the third team of D Unit." Ping Xiaoyi scolded, "You're only in D Unit. God knows how long it'll take for you to reach A Unit. Go back and cultivate well. What's the use of crying and complaining?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for your teachings." The little fellows walked away with their heads hung low. What's the third team of D Unit?" Gan Tianyin asked in confusion. What does A Unit refer to? With Gan Tianyin's position, it was inappropriate for him to ask about the disciples of another sect like this, but he was too curious. Moreover, the in-laws between the two sects were almost set in stone. Gan Tianyin was also a mother-in-law in the residence of 9 Supremes, and the question did not involve the secrets of the residence of 9 Supremes' cultivation methods or arcane skills. He was merely curious but not too abrupt. Ping Xiaoyi smiled bitterly and said, "It's just a symbol of the disciples' branches. It's easier to differentiate and manage." Gan Tianyin said humbly, "I'd like to hear the details." At this moment, another team walked over from the road ahead. When they saw the group, they stopped by the roadside and bowed to greet them. Gan Tianyin asked in a timely manner, "Which team are you?" The leader of the team was a little girl. She glanced at Gan Tianyin timidly and then at Ping Xiaoyi, hesitation written all over her face. She was speechless for a moment. "I'm asking you, just tell me," Ping Xiaoyi said. "Yes, sir," the little girl answered crisply. "We're B Unit 5th Team." B Unit 5th Team? Gan Tianyin looked over with a frown. Indeed, she realized that this team's disciples were stronger than the team that had just passed by in terms of essence, chi, spirit, cultivation base and talent. This knowledge made Gan Tianyin's mind whirl. Another thought flashed across her mind, and it was this sudden thought that left her dumbfounded. Could it be that the disciples of A Unit, B Unit, and C Unit are divided according to their cultivation base or talent? Not long after, they met another 30 to 40 teams. They were all lined up neatly and walked in unison. There were C Unit, E Unit, XIN all the way to GUE. After another round of careful observation and identification, Gan Tianyan's guess was confirmed. A unit, C unit, D unit, J unit, J unit, J unit. The 10 heavenly stems. Gan Tianyan felt that she was already dazzled and distracted. She remembered this website's address in a second. Mobile version, M. Chapter 1153. At the end of the journey, there were finally a few teams of Alpha disciples walking over. Gan Tianyan almost broke down as she tried to identify them again and again. Even a profound cultivator's state of mind was wavering. She tried her best to maintain a poker face, one of her hands already hidden in her sleeve as she pinched her thigh until it was bruised and black. Every single one of these A-rank disciples was at the same level as the 10 disciples that Yunyang had brought out. Each of them had the looks of a dragon and a phoenix, innate physique, gifted and talented, each and every one of them. How many were there? There were 30 people in each team of Alpha, and there were 90 such talented youths. How was this possible? Although the sects ranked slightly behind them in Gan Tianyan's opinion, many of them were clearly too young and their combat strength was relatively weak, which was why they stayed in the sects. Once they were slightly older, they would not pale in comparison to the Alpha disciples. In other words, each of the hundreds of Beta disciples could be called a prodigy in other sects. The hundreds of Alpha geniuses in the residence of 9 Supremes were equivalent to the hundreds of core disciples of other sects' leaders. Such a figure, not to mention a middle-grade sect, even in the East Celestial Palace, would be terrifying to the point of disbelief. Gan Tianyan suddenly felt that she had come to a concentration camp. A concentration camp for geniuses. May I ask why the residence of 9 Supremes classifies the disciples this way? Gan Tianyan asked. To avoid trouble. Guanuanyang said, Senior, you should know that the higher-ups of the residence of 9 Supremes are very few. There are only about 10 of us. How can we have the time to manage and teach so many disciples? Of course we have to compare our methods. Gan Tianyan was speechless. Therefore this is how we arrange these disciples. Guanuanyang continued. Guanuanyang said, only those who have ascended to the A rank will be taken in as seed disciples, the core disciples of the sect. Only those who are at least B-rank disciples are qualified to become true disciples. Of course, when true disciples improve to a certain level, they can become the core disciples of the sect. Then, C-rank disciples are inner disciples and D-rank disciples are outer disciples. There's no specific classification for those below D-rank, they're all menial disciples. Gan Tianyan stared at Guanuanyang's eloquent narration with widened eyes, feeling like there was thunder rumbling in his heart. The shock he felt was much greater than before. Only A-rank disciples are seed disciples? The B class clearly had so many disciples whose aptitudes and talents were not inferior to the A class. And then the C class inner sect? Ding class outer sect. That little girl from the Ding family just now had extraordinary talent and fighting spirit, but now her position is only a part-time disciple. Gan Tianyan felt as if there was an obstacle in her understanding. She couldn't understand it all. As a senior member of the sect, she naturally understood that there was a limit to a person's energy. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, as a master he could never teach hundreds or thousands of disciples at the same time. At most, he could only cultivate a limited number of disciples. In terms of the sect's emphasis, it was true that only the seed disciples could be taught and trained by their masters at any time, while the true disciples could only meet their masters in a unified lesson that was held once every few days. After that, the inner disciples, although they had the systematic inheritance of cultivation methods and martial skills, they basically couldn't see their teachers. Only the seed disciples or true disciples were responsible for answering questions, and the rest depended on their own understanding. Although the last disciples were disciples, most of the time they had to do the logistics work of the sect, and even their normal cultivation time was very limited, not to mention the orthodox teaching. Therefore, the gap between the inherited disciples had always been like heaven and earth, and there was absolutely no such thing as comparing them to each other. Therefore, the residents of 9 Supremes' actions were understandable and there was no room for criticism. However, the current situation was that the residents of 9 Supremes' disciples' talent was too high. Even the disciples from the D class and below were far superior to the disciples from the A class, B class and C class sects, although they were weaker than the disciples from other sections. The Phoenix Cry sect, for example, was now the chief disciple of a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sect, but the residents of 9 Supremes could compare to them in terms of the quality of their disciples. Gan Tianyan could not stand the sight of so many super geniuses having no status in the residence of 9 Supremes in the future, not even being able to meet their masters. There was only one thing that Gan Tianyin wanted to say now. It had been on the tip of her tongue for a long time, but she could not stop herself from saying it in the end. What a waste of God's gift. What a waste of God's gift. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang pursed their lips at each other. They were well aware of the residents of Nine Supreme's current situation, but this was the only way they could deal with it temporarily. The disciples had to be restrained by the corresponding rules and regulations, or what else could they do? They could not even chase the residents of Nine Supreme's disciples away. The path of cultivation has always been treacherous. Only by going through layers of training and selection can one obtain true gold and jade. The residents of Nine Supremes will pick a day every month to organize a martial competition between the various sections. The winner will be able to enjoy the benefits of leveling up. To put it simply, the strong will rise and the mediocre will fall. Even if you're a genius, as long as you don't work hard, you'll only be a servant in the residence of Nine Supremes in the end. To the residents of Nine Supremes, geniuses are neither important nor valued. Only those who work hard are the targets that everyone in the residence of Nine Supremes pursues. Gan Tianyin was tearing up when she heard Ping Xiaoyi's final summary. She wanted to say aloud, "The Phoenix Cry sect values geniuses. Give us the geniuses that you don't want. We value them, we treasure them, we don't mind taking them all." She was too embarrassed to say it out loud. What difference was there between the Phoenix Cry sect and a garbage collector if she were to say it out loud? Although Gan Tianyin knew that it did not matter even if she had to bear this reputation, the Phoenix Cry sect, the top disciple of the middle-class Celestial Luck banner, still valued their reputation. This is the Central Peaks Hall, this is the Central Peaks Drill Ground, this is the Central Peaks. This is the second peak, the third peak. Ping Xiaoyi introduced them one by one without hiding anything, making Gan Tianyin feel refreshed, especially when she stood at the highest point. The spiritual qi that came whistling towards her filled her with a sense of delight. Luluo, the residence of Nine Supremes, is not bad indeed. You're lucky you have a better eye. Jiang Luoluo nodded with a happy smile. The residence of Nine Supremes really has a lot of genius disciples. Gan Tianyin had been restless for a long time and could not hold it in any longer. I know what I'm saying, but it's obvious that the residents of Nine Supremes can't take care of so many disciples. Instead of letting so many of them have a bleak future and a hopeless life, perhaps we can distribute some of them. Jiang Luoluo frowned awkwardly. Master, I don't have the final say on this and it's not something I should say. Guanuanyang's calm voice came from the side. Actually, what you're saying is very kind, Senior. We're happy to see it happen. As long as the disciples you've taken a liking to are willing to join your sect, Senior Gan can take them away. Gan Tianyin was delighted. Are you serious? Absolutely. Guanuanyang said, Senior is our sister-in-law's master, so you're one of us. We shouldn't let our fertile water flow to an outsider. Perhaps the disciples you've taken a liking to will have a better future than staying here. The only thing is, Senior can't force them, and can't confuse their minds. The disciples must be willing. Of course. Gan Tianyin was relieved and beamed like a flower. I wonder if there's a limit to the number of disciples. If I take a liking to a dozen or 20 disciples and they're still willing to join the Phoenix Cry sect, is your residence really willing to do that? Guanuanyang smiled faintly. To be honest, Senior, there are 9,736 such disciples in the valley not far from here. No matter how many you've taken a liking to, as long as they agree, Senior can take all the disciples who agree to leave at once. What he said seemed very confident, but was he really that confident? Gan Tianyin was a person like her. How could she not guess that Guanuanyang must have something to rely on when he said so? However, looking at Guanuanyang's determined and serious face, she could not bring herself to doubt the authenticity of his words. Very well, I appreciate your residence's generosity. Gan Tianyin was truly moved at this moment. If she had been joking about picking a few disciples to test the waters, then now, she would definitely put it into action. She smiled somewhat mockingly. If your noble family can casually abandon such a genius at any time, it would truly shock me. It's hard to believe. Guanuanyang said faintly, perhaps Senior is more concerned about the disciples' talents, but my residence values the disciples' loyalty to the residents of Nine Supremes more. If some of them leave with Senior today, it's not certain that they won't leave with others in the future. I really don't care about such disciples. It's just a big wave washing away the sand. Guanuanyang said, Senior, feel free to persuade them. What you say makes sense. It's destined that many of the disciples who stay in the residence of 9 Supremes won't be able to get enough quality resources. It's not impossible for them to become the core disciples of other sections. To them it's a good thing. Over the next few days, Gan Tianyin was too embarrassed to trick the little fellows she had taken a liking to in the beginning. However, as time went by, the more she looked at them, the more she liked them. The more she looked at them, the more she was tempted. What was out of Gan Tianyin's expectation was that these little fellows' answers dealt a heavy blow to her even after she had asked them. I don't want to leave the residence of 9 Supremes. I'll stay here. I'm not going anywhere. Not going. It's good to stay here even if I can only be an outer disciple. I don't understand other places. That's right. You can stay here even if you're an errand boy. Isn't that great? Gan Tianyin asked dozens of people in disbelief. She had even purposely sought out the little fellows who were slightly less talented, but the final result was still the same. No one was willing to go with her. All the disciples' choices were the same. They would rather be an errand boy in the residence of 9 Supremes than go to another sect to be a seed disciple. Many of the disciples were so determined that they would live and die as members of the residence of 9 Supremes. Gan Tianyin could only feel frustrated in the face of such an answer. You little fellows have all been brainwashed. Gan Tianyin, who had tried many times, could only sigh sadly. She could only say that she had come at the wrong time. Her persuasion, trickery, and even bewitchment would only make choices that were more beneficial to them if they were adults who knew how to weigh the gains and losses. In spite of this, all her attempts were futile when she was faced with a bunch of children. She had said that it was good to go there, that they could become core disciples there, but they had blinked their big, cute eyes, obviously not knowing what a core disciple was. There were only 4 words deeply rooted in their little hearts. The residence of 9 Supremes was good. Then they were, this is the best place. There's nowhere better than here, I'm not going anywhere. Gan Tianyin was filled with melancholy in the face of such a situation, while Ping Xiaoyi and Guinuanyang were rather speechless. To be fair, the residence of 9 Supremes had too many disciples now. They could not take care of all of them. If this went on, there would definitely be people who would be delayed. It was not an excuse for Ping Xiaoyi and Guinuanyang to agree to Gan Tianyin's request. In spite of this, these little fellows were actually so resolute. Both of them were surprised and helpless. After several failed attempts of enticement, Gan Tianyin sighed and stopped trying to persuade them. It would be futile to try again now, and it would be a disgrace to her own reputation and position. Everything else would have to wait for Yun Yang's return and for her sect leader's junior sister to come and negotiate with Yun Yang and the other leaders. In the days that followed, Gan Tianyin and Jiang Luoluo stayed in almost every drill ground in the residence of 9 Supremes. In the beginning, watching the children practice, correcting their movements and answering their questions, they were all gifted and talented disciples who could understand with just a hint. Even though it was a little tough, they were willing to endure it. However, as the situation continued, Gan Tianyin truly understood what Guinuanyang meant when he said that he could not take care of all of them. There were indeed too many. Despite Gan Tianyin's level of cultivation base, it was easy for her to instruct these children. However, when there were so many of them, the change in quantity had turned into a qualitative change. There were so many that she could not take care of them all. There were a few drill grounds in the residence of 9 Supremes that occupied dozens of acres of land. The progress of each disciple was different. Naturally, there were no disciples who were completely at the same pace. To other sects, perhaps they were more troubled by not being able to find good talents to groom and train, but to the residence of 9 Supremes, it was the sheer number of geniuses that troubled them. One by one, the little fellows trained and competed in martial arts. They were all exceptionally serious, fully focused, and neat. Their little faces were solemn. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Over the past few days, apart from guiding many children in their cultivation, Gan Tianyin had only said these few words. He had not said anything else. Jiang Luoluo had secretly rolled her eyes countless times. Dong Qitian, who was hidden on the higher floor, looked at Gan Tianyin coldly, sneering inwardly. Ignorant woman. You only know that it's not bad. Actually, you won't be able to tell what's really not bad with your knowledge and experience. Your cultivation base is too low after all, and your vision is too shallow. Dong Qitian sighed. So many people had come and gone, but he was the only one who had the unique insight. Chapter 1154. Watching Gan Tianyin's futile attempts to persuade the children to join the Phoenix Cry sect, Dong Qitian could only roll his eyes to express his disdain. Poch. Oh. During the time these children had been admitted to the residence of 9 Supremes, other things aside, they had been completely brainwashed. The residence of 9 Supremes had rescued them from their most difficult days. This sentiment could not be swayed with mere words. Poach, I'll consider it your win if you can poach one. You're good. However, now that this girl is here to watch these children practice and give them pointers, this old man is much more relaxed. Speaking of which, now that there's someone working, shouldn't I go out and have some fun? There shouldn't be any ignorant fellows coming to attack in a short period of time. Even if someone did, with Ping Xiaoyi and Guanyuanyang guarding and Gan Tianyan and Zhang Luoluo accompanying them, ordinary sex would not be able to do anything to them. Indeed, he could go out and have a walk without any worries. On Yun Yang's side, it was already the 3rd day since he had entered the demonic realm. In these 3 days, Yun Yang had encountered a total of 13 battles. In each of these 13 battles, the mystical beasts he had to face were a level stronger than Wu Yu and the others outside. Basically, Yun Yang had to give it his all in each battle, even activating all his trump cards and exhausting both his mystical chi and the endless divine art. Only then could he defeat the enemy and win by a hair's breadth. In the first few rounds, he had to perform the first 5 styles of Destiny Blade at least 17 to 18 times to be able to handle it. In the outside world, there were not many people who could force him to use all 5 styles. However, this was not the scariest part. After Yun Yang killed the first beast, the subsequent beasts that came after him had increased their strength exponentially, becoming more and more difficult to deal with than the last. As he stayed longer, Yun Yang realized that the demonic realm did not seem to be any different from the outside world. There were mountains, forests, and valleys as far as the eye could see, and there were endless beasts. Other than that, there were many treasures of heaven and earth that grew everywhere. Delighted at the prospect, Yun Yang naturally tried to pluck them or teleport them away to see if he could bring them out. Originally, he thought that the existence of this realm was meant to test cultivators, and everything in this kind of space was mostly illusory. In other words, everything he saw now was not real. This understanding seemed to be more in line with what he had seen. After all, the heaven and earth treasures that could be seen everywhere were not only in shocking numbers, but their age was even more shocking as well. How could Yun Yang dare to believe a dozen or 20 stalks of 10,000-year-old spiritual plants so easily? Trying to pick, collect, and teleport was just a precaution. However, after coming into contact with the spiritual herb, the extremely realistic touch and fragrance made Yun Yang think about it. He decided to try eating a few of them, and he could clearly feel the surging medicinal power in his body. These spiritual plants are real. In other words, maybe we can take them out? Yun Yang looked at the stalk of Lingji in his hand that was crimson in color and exuding a unique fragrance, deep in thought. The spiritual plant in Yun Yang's hand was a stalk of cloud Ganoderma. As its name suggested, this Lingji was not like the commonly seen species that was hard. Instead, it was soft all over as if it was weightless to the touch. It felt almost weightless when held in his hand. In fact, this kind of Lingji was a dream item among the spiritual plants. Yun Yang had been searching for it for a long time, asking the General Commerce League for help but to no avail. Never would he have thought that he would find one not long after entering the demonic spiritual realm. Of course, the first thing that came into his hands was to digest the good stuff. Yun Yang ate 2 stalks of cloud Ganoderma and felt the abundant medicinal power flowing in his meridians. The authenticity of the spiritual plant was confirmed once again. It was edible. It was useful. Then, did it mean that he could bring it back as well? Therefore, wherever Yun Yang passed by, the raiders of all but God's elegance of plucking the feathers of a swallow as it passed by reappeared once more. Along the way, there was nothing that this leader Yun did not want as long as it was a spiritual plant. Even the piece of land where the cloud Ganoderma grew was kept into his deific consciousness space by leader Yun alone. This was probably what it meant to be swept clean. Just then, a gust of demonic wind blew, and another demonic beast appeared in front of Yun Yang. Yun Yang was already used to this. Without a word, he charged forward with his saber. With a loud clang, the demonic beast roared and blocked the divine edge with its claw. Then it pounced forward and launched a fierce counterattack. This one is a notch stronger than the previous one. It's indeed linked to my current highest combat power, no less. Yun Yang wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. Since entering this place, other than the first demonic beast that was slightly weaker, the beasts that came after that were stronger than the previous one. Moreover, the beasts that came to attack were all stuck at the level of their peak combat power. Such a situation naturally formed a result. One could win against the demonic beast, but to truly win, one must not go all out. One must exhaust all one's strength and only take down the beast when one's strength was exhausted. It was the same every time. One must exhaust every ounce of strength in one's body to be able to kill the opponent. On the third day, the situation continued to develop in a bad direction. Now, it was no longer a matter of exhausting one's strength to defeat the opponent, but one needed to make a reasonable distribution of one's strength to pass the stage. Only by using the strength that should be used in the right place could one kill the demonic beast. Any slight carelessness would cause the situation to take a turn for the worse, to the point where one would lose control. After that, one could only retreat in defeat. For example, you should have used a little more strength to slash the demonic beast and cause it to be seriously injured. However, you retracted that strength in preparation for a sneak attack from the demonic beast. Then, you would fall into a disadvantageous position in this battle because you used less strength. Then, the disadvantageous position would turn into a defeat. Once that happened, it would be out of control and you might even be completely defeated. Yes, it was this precise, this extreme, there was no room for error. After the first demon beast, the strength of every demon beast was at a very awkward and delicate point. Although you have the strength to defeat this demon beast, you have to be extremely cautious and serious in the battle. You have to work hard to accurately adjust your own shenqi. Only then can you kill the opponent. Any slight negligence would cause the situation to go out of control and one would lose. Yun Yang felt like he was a piece of sword embryo, and the endless beasts were like a sledgehammer hammering him continuously, hammering out all the impurities in his body. Every battle was a process of exhausting all of one's strength. Resting after the battle could restore all the lost strength in a very short period of time, and there would also be a small increase like 100-foot pole going a step further. Yun Yang's cultivation base, under these small increments, had successfully crossed the beginner second-grade Saint King to the intermediate level in just a few days. It was a remarkable speed. However, the demonic beasts he encountered were also getting stronger and stronger as Yun Yang improved. I understand now. This realm is truly a holy land for cultivation. The demonic beasts in this realm will become stronger as the cultivators become stronger, forming a virtuous cycle. The cultivators who enter this realm will improve at a godly speed in a relatively short period of time, advancing at a tremendous pace. As long as you fight with all your might and win, it's equivalent to breaking through a small limit, and you'll also get the most direct training in cultivation. This has long been evident in the small increment of cultivation base after each killing of a demonic beast. These small increments, when accumulated, will be the most frightening yet most gratifying progress. Even the barrier of a realm will hardly be an obstacle in such a cultivation atmosphere. Yun Yang was pleasantly surprised as he had an epiphany. I really don't know who set up such a marvelous realm, to be able to construct such a precise and incredible arrangement that is actually just right. No matter what situation the cultivators are in, they can adjust themselves accordingly. Such an arrangement is truly ingenious and unimaginable. Such an arrangement is a great opportunity for all of us in the residence of 9 Supremes to improve ourselves greatly. Dancing on the tip of a blade at every moment, hovering between life and death. As long as we can bear the burden, as long as our fighting spirit and will are not destroyed, we'll be able to cultivate further and improve at every moment. It's a perfect fit for the Demiurge Flawed 10 and the others who are known for their willpower. The only pity now is that I can't contact Wuchen and the others. I can't meet anyone here at all, it's like I'm alone in this realm. I only hope that those little fellows don't forget my usual teachings and fight the demonic beasts with the most positive attitude. Yun Yang closed his eyes, making use of the gap he had just gained from killing the demonic beasts to adjust his breath and recover. According to his experience, the next wave of demonic beasts should come in 2 hours. Since he had entered this place, including the one just now, Yun Yang had gone through 14 battles and gained a total of 11 demonic beast skins, 17 complete demonic beast tendons, 11 demonic pills, and various materials from the demonic beasts. Despite Yun Yang's cautiousness and the many trump cards he had, there were still 3 demonic beasts that had withstood Yun Yang's divine will, and escaped, dragging their wounded bodies away. As the saying went, one could infer the general trend from one small clue. The difficulty of fighting the demonic beast here was evident. After Yun Yang finished regulating his breathing, he realized that there was still some time before the attack of the demonic beasts, but he did not hesitate to sit still. He crossed the bamboo forest and crossed the river to the other side of the river, where he saw a small tree swaying in the wind. The small tree looked as if it was carved out of white jade, and the leaves on it were purple in color. There was only one fruit on the top of the tree, and it was golden and eye-catching. Was that the golden vein fruit? The golden vein fruit was an extremely rare spiritual fruit in the bound of universe. Its effect was different from most of the treasures of heaven and earth. Compared to most treasures of heaven and earth that could increase the cultivation base of the consumer, this fruit would double the flexibility of the consumer's meridians and mental strength after consumption. Its effect was amazing. It was definitely a good thing. Yunyang took a deep breath and did not choose to fly over to pluck it immediately. Instead, he stopped and observed the surroundings carefully. According to the lessons learned from the past few times, Yunyang could be sure that there must be powerful demonic beasts protecting such treasures of heaven and earth. In other words, when the treasures of heaven and earth were found, it was equivalent to entering the rhythm of battle. If greed blinded one's mind for even a moment, one would fall into a hopeless situation in the blink of an eye. Although he did not know if he would really die here, the spiritual materials in this place were real, and so were the remains of the demonic beasts. Why would death not be real? Yunyang looked around and abruptly swung his saber. A gust of wind from his saber shot into the calm river. The next moment, the surface of the river surged and waves shot out from the water like snow-white arrows. Then, something that looked like a fish, a cow, a horse, a snake but not a snake, sprang out of the water. Its two large eyes were glinting menacingly as it stared at Yunyang. Yunyang's heart skipped a beat when he saw the monster. He frowned as he pondered. It was another fellow that he did not know. The monster charged forward, howling. Yunyang went up to meet it with a thoughtful expression. Just like before, he fought back and forth, slowly searching for the opponent's weakness. He was neither impatient nor impatient, fighting steadily and surely. The battle lasted for a full 4 hours. Yunyang's last slash shone brightly. The moment the monster's head was chopped off, his last breath of energy was exhausted. He fell to the ground, trembling uncontrollably. It's still the same. Yunyang used this battle to completely prove his previous thoughts. These demonic beasts were indeed maintained at the same level of his pinnacle combat power under some kind of restriction in this space. In other words, in this realm, he had to break through a limit in every battle to have the hope of defeating his next opponent. Furthermore, the standard of his combat power was set based on the skills he had displayed. The battle prowess he had displayed included his movement techniques, footwork, saber techniques, sword techniques, mystical chi, the power of the endless divine art, and even the sharpness of the blade of heaven's will. Everything had been accounted for. In other words, if he lost the divine edge or any of the above, he would not be a match for these demonic beasts. Amazing. Really extreme. The only word that could be used to describe the accuracy of Yunyang's perception and judgment of this space was terrifyingly poor. After this battle, even you yourself may not feel that your battle strength is a little stronger than before. However, when you meet the demonic beasts again, they have already calculated the slight increase in your strength. You can only kill the demonic beasts when you're on the brink of death. Yunyang's condition was dire. He really did not have much energy left, causing half of his body to lie in the water, panting heavily. It was only after a long while that he had the strength to move, but the first thing he did was to regulate his breathing. After about an hour, Yunyang, who had finished his recuperation, stood up and walked over to pluck the gold vein fruit, keeping it in his hands. As soon as the golden vein fruit was plucked, the white jade-like tree trunk withered rapidly and turned into powder in an instant. Only the fruit fell into Yunyang's hands. With a single thought, Yunyang had already sent the fruit into his deific consciousness space. Although the gold vein fruit was rare and its effect was remarkable, it was still better to send it into his deific consciousness space to see if Emmy could cultivate it in the long run. After all, there was only one fruit. If he ate it directly, there would be no more. Aya! Emmy's pliable vines caught the gold mahogany fruit, beaming with delight. If one were to say who had gained the most since entering this mysterious space, it would undoubtedly be Emmy. Countless amounts of demonic beasts' flesh, countless amounts of demonic beasts' inner elixirs, and countless years of treasured resources. All of them had entered the deific consciousness space. As soon as the flesh entered the space, it was buried by Emmy on the spot, grumbling incessantly. It meant, you should have sent all these things in the first moment you killed them. Why did you stay outside for so long? So much of the essence in the flesh has been wasted, do you know? Yunyang was speechless upon hearing this. Big brother, I'm still a human. There will be times when I'm exhausted. Do you know how much energy I used to kill those demonic beasts? I'm really exhausted. On the other side, Shi Wuchen, Luo Dajiang, and the others had also swiftly deduced the mystery of this trial journey with their rich martial world experience. Everyone's eyes were shining, their bodies filled with endless energy. Although they were exhausted after each battle, they could not wait to immediately enter the next cycle after killing a demonic beast. After all, the spiritual chi here was abundant, comparable to that of an upper-class sect. Basically, they were in a state of recovery and improvement at all times. It had only been 5 days, but Luo Dajiang could already feel a significant improvement in his cultivation base. Initially, he would need at least 6 hours to recover his energy after his cultivation base was exhausted, but after coming to this realm and cultivating several times, he only needed less than 4 hours to recover. This was evidence of the improvement of his cultivation base and the improvement of his self-recovery ability. This knowledge made him even more motivated. The Demiurge Flawed Ten's cultivation base was similar, their life experiences were similar, and their fighting spirit and determination were similar as well. Luo Dajiang's gain was similar to that of others like Shi Wuchen, Ren Qingquang and Lan Ruojuan. They were pleasantly surprised and devoted themselves to killing the mystical beasts. Compared to Yunyang, Shi Wuchen, and the other senior masters of the Residence of Nine Supremes who had improved their cultivation base by leaps and bounds, the disciples who were not with their masters and were fighting on their own seemed to be in a miserable state. Yun Xiuxin was startled by the first demonic beast she encountered after entering the realm. Despite her fear, the little girl did not panic and managed to stabilize herself. It took her a whole day to fight the beast with all her might before she finally killed it. When it came to the second beast, it still took her a whole morning. Although the efficiency was not low with Yun Xiuxin's cultivation base, it was by no means fast. In the next 6 days, the little girl only killed a total of 4 demonic beasts. During this period, she even made a mistake and was chased by a demonic beast for a long time. It was a very miserable experience. However, after a series of battles, the little girl slowly figured out the pattern. In the beginning, after killing the demonic beasts, she only focused on recuperating and guarding against the subsequent attacks of the demonic beasts. She no longer paid attention to the beast that she had killed. However, when she killed a mystical beast, she accidentally found a demonic beast's inner core. Only then did she realize that the demonic beasts she encountered were real, and the inner core was even more real. Naturally, she would not let it go. If the inner core of the demonic beast was real, then the heaven and earth treasures she saw along the way were naturally real as well. Regardless of whether they were useful or not, and whether she knew them or not, she just stuffed them all into her spatial ring. It was already an exhilarating honor to kill the demonic beasts that were traveling side by side with her own strength. Now she could even collect so many heaven and earth treasures. It was wonderful. Wonderful. It felt so good. Chapter 1155. After several battles, Yun Xiuxin's innocence had long disappeared. Now, with a sword in one hand and a guard in the other, she moved forward cautiously, not forgetting to look around to see if there were any treasures that she had missed. The situation of the female disciples was similar. At the beginning they were chased like chickens and dogs, but after some twists and turns, they managed to stabilize their footing and slowly discovered the abnormality. In other words, the process was different and the efficiency was slightly different. But the experience of the male disciples was completely different. Those who were more experienced, such as Bai Yexing and Sun Mingxiu, had already discovered the subtlety of this realm during the second battle. However, these two had taken it for granted that this realm was set up as a trial, and since the cultivation base of the demon beast was maintained at the same level as theirs, it was definitely not real. So, how could they gain anything after the battle? Bai Yexing's situation was better. When he killed the 5th demonic beast, he accidentally touched a demon core and realized the truth, and he regretted what he had done. Sun Mingxiu, on the other hand, killed all the way and did not collect a single demon core from the beginning to the end. He did not even take any of the treasures that he encountered. He had entered a mountain of treasures but returned empty-handed. Sometimes, one who was too steady and rational might lose a lot. That was probably what happened to Sun Mingxiu. Compared to the two before him, Hu Xiaofan still maintained his usual good luck, reaping huge profits along the way. Starting from the beginning, he reaped the harvest cleanly, leaving not even a blade of grass untouched. He was even more thorough than Yunyang. The boy had 3 spatial items with him, but they were all stuffed to the brim. However, no matter what happened, the cultivation base of the Residence of Nine Supremes disciples was soaring. A few girls were so focused on guarding against the attack of the demonic beasts that they were muddle-headed throughout the whole process. It was not until a certain point when the barriers in their bodies disappeared with a boom and they broke through to a higher level that they suddenly snapped out of their daze. How did I break through without knowing it? Time flew by as they broke through and fought. During the whole month, only the first few days were a little painful and frightened. After all, the huge size and ferocious appearance of the demonic beasts were still very intimidating. However, as time passed, the beasts they encountered became more and more ferocious and powerful. However, the fear they had in the beginning disappeared completely. Right now, everyone was thinking about one thing. What kind of demonic beast would I encounter today, and how much of my cultivation would I be able to display? Although killing demonic beasts was physically taxing, and after each battle one would be half dead from exhaustion, but every victory would result in a lot of spirit materials and demonic cores. If one was lucky, one could even obtain some other things. Not only were there demonic beasts and spiritual plants in this secret realm, but there were also many mineral resources that were hard to find in the outside world. After entering the secret territory, every day that passed, all the disciples would feel, how did time pass so quickly? Another day had passed. The sky was black and white. One day passed. Another day passed. Another day passed. In the blink of an eye, it was already the 20th day. Right now, Yun Yang's cultivation base had steadily increased to the pinnacle of 3rd level Saint King. He was only a step away from advancing to 4th level Saint King. However, he had encountered an inexplicable bottleneck here. In fact, Yun Yang had reached this level 3 days ago. However, after 3 days, no matter how much he battled, exhausted himself, it was of no help to the current bottleneck. His cultivation base did not increase in the slightest. Yun Yang knew that he had probably reached the end of his cultivation this time. It would be futile to force himself to continue cultivating. Decisively, he began to train his self-control. Whenever an accident happened, he would discover it in time and solve the current accident in the most ingenious and effortless way. Slowly, Yun Yang integrated this realization into Saber Truth. Destiny Blade? There was one time when a yellow golden black tiger suddenly appeared. Yun Yang swung his saber, intending to block the enemy's edge and give himself a chance to turn the situation around. Unexpectedly, the moment the gigantic yellow golden black tiger's claws came into contact with the divine edge, it howled and its muscular body slid to the side abruptly. When it landed, it even surged forward uncontrollably. Yun Yang's eyes shone. Is this leveraging force to counter force? Leveraging force to counter force was a technique that appeared in many techniques. It was almost the same everywhere, but the intricacies of it were not something anyone could learn. At least, it was impossible to master without a certain level of experience in actual combat. This required impeccable control of strength and countless times of wandering between life and death. Only then could one deflect the incoming force, divert it, or even reverse it completely to attack the incoming enemy. This was a trick that would be difficult to achieve if it were not for countless experiments and practice. Yun Yang's experience during this period of time had given him the opportunity to explore and practice this possibility. As Yun Yang's thoughts raced, he purposely emptied his mind. The saber in his hand swung left and right. Towards the end, the trajectory of each swing was a circular arc. There was another soft clang. The yellow tiger looked at the place where it had landed with eyes full of fear. That place had already deviated from its target by at least 30 feet. Furthermore, my tail. How did it get cut off? With a howl, the yellow tiger ran away with its tail between its legs. It was too frightening. A gust of black wind blew and the yellow tiger disappeared without a trace. Yun Yang did not give chase. He really did not have the mood to pay attention to the yellow metal tiger. Instead, he was deep in thought. His sudden inspiration had not only caused the yellow metal tiger's heavy pounce to deviate from its intended direction, but he had also followed it up with a slash of his saber, cutting off the yellow metal tiger's tail without any hindrance with an untraceable slash. That casual slash just now was a variation of the merciless blade of the Destiny Blade. But previously he had clearly chopped at the yellow tiger's tail many times, and it seemed like he had only managed to draw some blood. How could that seemingly casual slash cause such great damage? Why was this so? Was it because the swing felt smooth and comfortable? Yun Yang frowned, recalling the swing he had executed just now. It replayed in his mind no less than 30 to 50 times. From the deflecting force, to the bearing of the force, to the borrowing of the force, to the casual half-turn of his body and the casual swing of his hand, the divine edge. Heaven's will has always been high and difficult to question. Heaven's will has always been elusive. Yun Yang's eyes grew brighter. A glimmer of enlightenment rose quietly in his heart. For the next 6 days, Yun Yang had to fight 4 or more times a day in this manner. The intense battles allowed him to comprehend the techniques he had just learned. As the cycle repeated itself, Yun Yang gradually realized that his saber truth, Destiny Blade was evolving and evolving in another direction. While the movements of the saber grew more agile, it also grew more forceful. There are rules and trajectories between heaven and earth. Once the saber moves in line with the flow of heaven's will, it will be indestructible and unbreakable. As the saying goes, the path of my saber is like cutting cloth with a saber. No matter how sharp the blade is, I still have to use a lot of strength to chop the cloth, but I might not be able to separate it neatly. However, as long as I find the right direction and aim, I can easily split it with a very light force. Furthermore, if I allow the saber to use the flexibility of the cloth to cut it, it will only be easier to separate the cloth. Through constant combat practice, Yunyang increased his understanding bit by bit, improving and perfecting the saber technique bit by bit. In the first 2 days, his saber technique was choppy and sluggish, and there were even mystical beasts that escaped from his hands. However, as time went on, the saber gradually became more complete, and there were no more mistakes. One by one, the mystical beasts charged at him. With the brand new Destiny Blade, Yunyang dealt with them with ease. From the difficulty of dealing with them to killing them with a few casual slashes, the whole process took only 2 days. When the brand new Destiny Blade was completed, Yunyang killed a total of 6 mystical beasts in 1 day, and each of these beasts was at the pinnacle of the 4th grade Saint King level. Yunyang was still only at the pinnacle of the 3rd grade Saint King level. In other words, Yunyang had surpassed them by a whole level and killed mystical beasts that were almost invincible compared to humans of the same level. According to the common knowledge of the Bound of Universe, the current Yunyang basically had no difficulty against ordinary 1st grade Saint Venerables. At this time, there were still 4 days left before the end of the trial. Yunyang's next opponent was a 1st grade Saint Venerable's demonic beast, Rolling Sky Roar. In this battle, both sides were in an extremely desperate state. Although Yunyang had the enhancement of the newly cultivated technique, under the absolute suppression of the level and the tyrannical power of Rolling Sky Roar, his effectiveness plummeted, and he was unable to defeat the enemy. Technique, even if it's the purest technique, is still only suitable for enemies that are 1 or 2 levels higher than me. Then, when facing humans, I can probably deal with enemies that are 3 levels higher than me. But when facing a mystical beast that is 2 levels higher than me, it's beyond my limit. Is it to remind me of my position by arranging such a mystical beast to appear here in this realm? Or perhaps, to let me know my own limits? But this kind of understanding is probably only reasonable for me. According to the common knowledge of the Bound of Universe's practitioners, when facing a weaker enemy, it's natural to crush them all the way. There's no need to use techniques at all. On the other hand, when facing a strong enemy, using techniques to deal with the situation is, in essence, no different from showing weakness. The so-called techniques are only a way to win in defeat. This is an experience that must be firmly remembered. I can't instill this understanding into all my disciples. It's too irresponsible to simply copy it according to my standards, and it's very dangerous. Yunyang pondered and summarized in his heart, coming up with a clear position for his current comprehensive ability. However, the battle against the sweeping heaven roar was still ongoing. Even though Yunyang knew that his chances of winning were slim, he had never retreated a single inch. Each time he would charge forward with the fullest, most spirited will to fight. Again and again he felt the opponent's powerful strength, clashing again and again. Of course, Yunyang was not charging forward blindly. He was using this method to search for battle techniques when facing a strong opponent that surpassed his current limit. On the second last day, Rolling Sky Roar was finally forced to retreat by him for the first time. They were evenly matched, and it was no longer Yunyang who was completely suppressed. Rolling Sky Roar glared at Yunyang with its large bell-like eyes, as if it could not understand how this weak human had become so strong this time. It was at this moment that Yunyang suddenly realized that his state of rapid recovery and improvement after being depleted a few days ago had returned once again. This discovery made Yunyang even more excited. There was not much time left. He had to utilize this rebirth opportunity in the most proactive way possible. Therefore, each time he recovered quickly, he would immediately charge towards the 7-colored vine guarded by Rolling Sky Roar. The 7-colored vine was guarded by Rolling Sky Roar. Anyone who wanted to obtain it would have to defeat Rolling Sky Roar to explore it. On the other hand, this item was equivalent to Rolling Sky Roar's private property. If others wanted it, they would have to fight it. Yunyang had used this as an opportunity to provoke it again and again. Of course, the rainbow vine itself was something that Yunyang truly desired as well. The vine's effect was different from ordinary spiritual materials. It was an extremely unique weaponsmithing material. Its powder could be blended with any kind of metal, any metal that was incompatible with water and fire. As long as the powder of the rainbow vine was put in, it would blend seamlessly. Even if it was the mystical heaven gold and earth demon silver, two materials that would explode when they were put together, they would be able to coexist peacefully with the addition of the 7-colored vine powder. Yun-yang believed that as long as he brought the 7-colored vine back, the many rare metals that he had previously collected would be put to use immediately. Now, under Emmy's continuous refinement, all the rare metals were basically left with the most essential parts. Even the stellar raw gold that had been the size of a small hill was now only a lump the size of 2 to 3 people. However, due to the sheer amount and variety, there were quite a number of such lumps of metal essence in the space. The scene when they were piled up was quite a sight to behold. Rolling Sky Roar was very annoyed by the little person in front of it. As a powerful demonic beast, it only had one territory, and this area with the 7-colored vine as the core was its territory. Although it didn't know what the treasure it was guarding was or what it was used for, its instincts told it that this was its territory and this was its thing. Since it was its thing, it couldn't let others take it away for no reason. However, that weak human, no, it should be the fellow who was originally weak but was now growing stronger. He charged over tirelessly, launching wave after wave of attacks. I need to rest too, okay? I'm made of flesh and blood too. Why is a human like you recovering faster than me? Genius in a second. Remember website address. Mobile version, M. Chapter 1156. Please take a leave of absence from I am Supreme. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1157. The heaven-encompassing roar was extremely frustrated. It had not even been 2 hours and the fellow had come again. Another 2 hours and the fellow had come again. Every time he would be able to beat him to the point that he would flee for his life, but he would return in less than an hour. And it had only been 2 hours. 2 hours was not even enough for it to recover from its fatigue. The heaven-encompassing roar was helpless and dissatisfied with the current situation. However, it could not leave it be. It could only fight with all its might, its heart even more determined. I'd like to see how many times you can recover. Don't ever give me a chance. As long as I can pinpoint an opening, your father will kill you, shatter you into pieces and grind your bones into dust. However, once, twice, thrice, many times later Yun-yang maintained a state of rapid recovery. Once he had recovered, he would not wait any longer and would fight again immediately. Once he felt that his energy had been depleted, he would escape at once, never giving the heaven-encompassing roar a chance to kill him. Later on, the heaven-coiling roar's condition worsened. It squatted on a rock and panted heavily, the color of its fur dimming. Because of this, Yun-yang cultivated to recover hundreds of feet in front of the heaven-coiling roar. Obviously, Yun-yang could already confirm that when he was at the end of his rope, the opponent's mystical beast was not much better off than he was. Even if it was not at the end of its rope, it was close to the end of its rope. Basically, when they had reached their limits, they would have no more energy left to move. There was no longer any possibility of the opponent killing him. The heaven-encompassing roar was panting heavily, staring at the human in front of it. It was angry, anxious, and hateful. You said you can't beat me, why aren't you King leaving already? What do you mean by wasting your time here? If this goes on, I won't be able to hold on any longer. Besides, how can a human like you recover so quickly? Are you still human? You're clearly trying to piss this beast to death. Especially this time. I'm about to die from panting. It watched as the human's breathing gradually steadied. Slowly he opened his eyes and smiled at it. The heaven-encompassing roar's eyes were red. As expected, the human stood up again. The heaven-encompassing roar was trembling. It was filled with grief and indignation. Are you still human? How can you recover faster than me, a beast king? Fine, I admit that you are worse than a beast, okay? When Yun-yang was done with his recuperation, he stood up and shook his head before he pulled out the divine edge with a clang and charged forward with a loud cry. The coiling heaven centipede roared. It forcefully raised its spirit and charged forward. Even if this king is not in his best condition, this king will not be afraid of you. But this time, the heaven-sweeping roar was getting more and more out of sorts. It seemed like this human was getting stronger and stronger, to the point where he could threaten this king. Every slash that landed on its body was extremely painful. Wasn't this proof of this point? After fighting for less than a quarter of an hour, the heaven-sweeping centipede let out a loud roar, and a huge circle of fire appeared all over its body. Yun-yang took a step back, holding his saber with one hand, fully focused. This was the killer move. Heaven-sweeping roar was about to be used. This technique had caused Yun-yang to suffer quite a number of losses previously. He had almost been defeated by it during their second encounter. However, what was out of his expectations was that after the heaven-sweeping centipede roared, it actually jumped out of the battle with a whoosh and fled without looking back. It even abandoned the spiritual medicine that it had guarded for so long. Yunyang obviously did not expect this to happen. He was stunned and did not follow up for a long time. F***CKME, you are a 4th level Saint King Pinnacle Cultivation Base, a Demon King who is half a step to Supreme Saint. You actually ran away with a feint. This is too illogical. It really makes me sprain my waist. However, Yunyang was already very satisfied to be able to defeat the heaven-sweeping centipede and obtain the rainbow vine. Even though the enemy had left, Yunyang did not slack off. He went forward to collect the rainbow vine and even dug out a large piece of rock where the vine grew, moving a small mound that was a few hundred feet wide and a few hundred feet deep into his deific consciousness space. Emmy was shocked by the scene. What in the world had come in? There were only 30 days to cultivate in the arcane realm. No matter how reluctant it was, the wheel of time would never stop moving. It had already reached the last day of the arcane realm. It was also on this last day that Yunyang, who had just defeated the Supreme Saint King heaven-sweeping centipede, was quietly waiting for the final moment to arrive. To Yunyang, he had gained too much in this arcane realm and was no longer greedy. Therefore, on the last day he did not deliberately search for the whereabouts of other mystical beasts, nor did he harvest any more heaven and earth treasures. However, just as he was calming down and thinking about his gains during this period of time, he was shocked to feel the chi in his body suddenly surging, almost uncontrollable. The chi and blood in his body continued to surge, gradually climbing to a certain peak. At that moment, his entire body was filled with a feeling like it was about to explode. Then, in that instant, the meridian barrier in a certain part of his body suddenly shattered. A large amount of mystical chi, which had been unusually abundant and had nowhere to vent, took this opportunity to rush out, surging violently. He had broken through to the 4th level of Saint King. Yunyang suddenly felt like he was floating. The eternal restraint of the earth seemed to have disappeared at this moment. There was a common understanding among high-level cultivators in the bound of universe. It was extremely difficult to advance from the 3rd level to the 4th level of Saint King. It was even more difficult than ascending from the 4th level to the Supreme Saint King. This was because this was a bottleneck in the path of cultivation. It required cultivation base, opportunity, and providence to reach a critical point in order to have a chance to cross over. Purely increasing cultivation base and grinding effort would not allow one to break through the barrier of the 3rd level of Saint King. Yunyang was pleasantly surprised by this breakthrough, but he quickly adjusted his state of mind to carefully appreciate the current unique atmosphere. Feeling the surging mystical chi in his body, he instantly determined that his current ability had increased by almost 3 times as compared to before. A feeling of power that he had never felt before arose spontaneously and was difficult to erase. For a moment he even dared to assert that if he were to fight with the rolling heaven centipede in his current state, he could take down the Supreme Saint-level demonic beast within 10 moves. Compared to Yunyang's high spirits and contentment, Amy in the space was not far behind. It was comparing something and even squeaking from time to time, but its tone was very doubtful. Yunyang's heart skipped a beat as he focused his gaze and saw that Emmy was focusing on 2 piles of round items in front of it. On one side there were hundreds of mystical beasts' mystical cores. On the other side there were only about a dozen of them. They were the mystical cores of the demonic beasts that Yunyang had obtained in this arcane realm. Speaking of mystical cores and demonic cores, Yunyang could not tell the difference between the two just from the appearance alone. They looked the same and did not emit any aura, so it was naturally difficult to distinguish them. However, Emmy had clearly noticed the difference between the two and was using its vines to fiddle with the cores, looking through them one by one. Immediately after, a black demonic mist was suddenly emitted from one of the demonic cores, and a powerful force rose and spread out. The countless heterogeneous and malevolent forces that were mixed within it were all on full display. The aura that emerged from the other mystical core, on the other hand, was neutral and peaceful. It would not be a problem to use it for cultivation. If the two were to be compared from this point, the power contained within the demonic core was naturally greater, but it was not suitable for cultivation. While the power contained within the mystical core was slightly lesser, as long as one's cultivation base reached the level of a saint, the gradual absorption of the power within would be sufficient to boost the cultivation progress of a cultivator. Perhaps this is the fundamental difference between the mystical core and the demonic core. Yunyang came to a realization. Perhaps it's also the difference between mystical beasts and demonic beasts. Before he could examine the difference between the mystical core and the demonic core, Yunyang suddenly felt the world spinning around him. The scene in front of him changed as if the stars had moved, and countless sceneries flashed past his eyes. The next moment, light bloomed in front of him again, but he was already outside the arcane realm. The place where they stood was the battlefield for the Battle of the Middle-Class Celestial Luck Banners on Mount Pentatir, which was also the starting point for entering the secret realm. However, Mount Pentatir was now empty without a single soul in sight. As Yunyang's thoughts raced, silhouettes flashed and appeared again. Shi Wuchen and the others appeared in front of him one after another. All of them wore a look of unsatiated joy. Yunyang glanced at them. Not a single one of them was missing, and each of them was in high spirits and full of enthusiasm. Obviously, everyone had benefited a lot from the arcane realm this time, and their cultivation base had improved greatly. Yunyang did not waste any time and waved his hand. Let's go. Let's go home, we'll talk as we walk. At Mount Pentatir, not being able to see through everyone's real cultivation base was a form of protection during the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner, but now it was a bit of a blindfold. The people in front of them were all on the same side, so it was better to leave this place where they could not see through each other's cultivation base as soon as possible. Along the way, everyone was talking at once, almost rushing to proclaim their achievements and gains. Shi Wuchen was the first to speak. My cultivation base has advanced to the 4th tier Saint King. That's the first time I've achieved such a cultivation base, isn't it? Luo Dajiang smiled. What a coincidence. Me too. Then, me too, was heard one after another. Ren Qinghuang and the others' cultivation base had also reached the 4th tier Saint King. In terms of progress alone, they had actually caught up with Shi Wuchen, who had the highest cultivation base. Yunyang glanced at the crowd, his face beaming with joy as he said in a low voice, everyone has advanced by 2 tiers in this arcane realm, which is really good. But there's one thing. All the treasures of heaven and earth and the demonic cores obtained inside must be handed over to the sect to record your contribution. Alright, understood. No one is allowed to keep the demonic cores for themselves, let alone use them. No matter when. Yunyang exhorted in a heavy tone. The crowd nodded. Almost all of them agreed to Yunyang's words without any hesitation. Luo Dajiang asked on behalf of Yunyang, are the demonic cores harmful to improving one's cultivation base? That's right. Yunyang said solemnly, if one forcibly takes the demonic cores to improve one's cultivation base, I'm worried that one will be demonized, not to mention suffering from chi deviation. Yes. The crowd sucked in a cold breath when they heard that, especially the disciples who all had lingering fear on their faces. Fortunately they did not act on impulse. If they had swallowed the demonic cores directly like Hu Xiaofan, they would have been in big trouble. Yun Xiaoxin raised her hand excitedly and said, Master, I'm now at the peak of the 3rd tier venerable realm. The little girl obviously felt that she had made a lot of progress, for she looked proud and felt very good about herself at the moment. I'm at the 3rd tier intermediate level of venerable, Bai Yexing reported. The 3rd tier beginner level of venerable, Sun Mingxiu added. The 3rd tier intermediate level of venerable. Hu Xiaofan chuckled and glanced at Bai Yexing maliciously. Bai Yexing looked back at him calmly, his eyes deep. His meaning was self-evident, little guy, the same cultivation base doesn't mean the same combat strength. If you're not convinced, you can come and give it a try. The other disciples had also made a lot of progress between the peak of the 2nd tier and the beginner level of the 3rd tier. In this way, the strength of residents of 9 Supremes had taken another great leap after this trial in the mystic realm. When we go back, each of the top 10 disciples will go through a month or 2 of consolidation and training, and then go out into the martial world on their own to gain experience in life. There's no need to cultivate in seclusion in the sect anymore. Yunyang smiled faintly and said, I know you've always been looking forward to the days of wandering the martial world. When the disciples heard this, their faces were filled with excitement. They looked at each other with sparkling eyes, eager to give it a try. Their intentions were clear. Shi Wuchen and the others smiled bitterly at each other. There was no doubt that in the hearts of these young boys and girls, the words wandering the martial world were like a poem or a painting. Riding horses all over the world, roaming the martial world, punishing the evil and promoting the good, taking the 4 corners of the world as their home and doing chivalry. Just the thought of it was enough to make one yearn for it. In the martial world there were friends, hot blood, wine, beauties, legends, heroes, swordsmen, assassins. Wow, how colorful and magnificent it was. But when one really roamed the martial world, one would know that the so-called wandering the martial world was absolutely different from what one had imagined. What one had imagined before was just a dream. The martial world in stories and the real martial world were not the same thing at all. The people who wrote those stories in the martial world, those authors at least had never roamed the martial world. When you really roamed the Jianghu, you would definitely want to kill those people who wrote Jianghu stories. What kind of nonsense are these idiots writing? They've never done this even in their dreams. It's fine if you're talking nonsense, but why do you have to mislead others? Why do you have to mislead me? What? In the past, Shi Wuchen and the others had tasted all the hardships of roaming the martial world. From the bottom of their hearts, they naturally did not want their disciples to follow in their footsteps. However, they understood that their disciples were still dreaming of roaming the martial world, just like they had in the beginning. Not only could they not stop them, they could not even warn them beforehand. This was because they had to experience this cruelty themselves. Only then could it be transformed into a lifetime of wealth. The instilling of external forces could never compare to the cruel truth of reality, which was more solid in the depths of their hearts. Along the way, everyone's spirits were still high. Even Shi Wuchen, who had always looked cold, was smiling, which was rare, not to mention the disciples of the younger generation, especially Hu Xiaofan, who had a jumpy personality. This child's luck was amazing. Not only did his cultivation base improve the most in the arcane realm, he had also reaped a bountiful harvest. The treasures of heaven and earth he had collected were even higher than Shi Wuchen and the others, almost catching up to Yun Yang's. He was envied by many of the disciples. The moment they left the boundary of Mount Fivefold, Yun Yang subconsciously looked back and saw a thick fog suddenly falling from the sky, drowning the entire Mount Fivefold in an instant. In an instant, it was as if Mount Fivefold did not exist, leaving only a thick fog so thick and deep that one could not see through it at all. Yun Yang's mind raced as he tried to go back the way he had come. However, after a dozen steps he suddenly lost his sense of direction and felt the thick fog pressing down on him in an irresistible manner. Yun Yang hurriedly retreated, but it took him some time to find the right direction as he retreated. Mount Fivefold had suddenly become a forbidden land that was difficult to set foot in. It is indeed a wonderful place where the creation of heaven and earth gathers. Yun Yang exclaimed. It seemed that this Mount Fivefold would only open after 3 years. 3 years later, I want to be promoted to an upper-class sect here, and even replace the position of Sacred Heart Palace. Yun Yang said quietly in his heart. The group embarked on their return journey, but it was a long one. Along the way, sand and dust billowed in the air, covering the sky and covering the sun. However, in the hearts of Yun Yang and the group, everyone felt that the sun was shining brightly, and they were in an extremely good mood. It was just that when they passed by a patch of forest, Shi Wuchen, who was leading the way, stopped abruptly and made a hand gesture. The entire group stopped immediately and did not move forward. In an instant, the entire place was silent. The group squinted and looked carefully in the direction of the forest. With a wave of Yun Yang's hand, Wu Minghuan and Kong Luoyue turned into 2 wisps of green smoke and floated into the forest without a word. Yun Yang stood with his arms behind his back, looking at the dark forest, his gaze calm and unruffled. After a while, Wu Minghuan and Kong Luoyue flew out, their expressions extremely solemn. What is it? There are many corpses in the forest, a total of 13 of them. Kong Luoyue's gaze was solemn, mixed with a hint of worry. They are from the Black Mountain League, ranked 5th among the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sections. Other than that, there are no other abnormalities. Yun Yang and the others frowned upon hearing this. No other abnormalities? It was already a huge anomaly that someone from the Black Mountain League had died here. This place was not far from Mount Fivefold, and the Black Mountain League was a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sect. Their combined strength was even greater than the residents of 9 Supremes, so how could they be weak? How could such an expert die here? Chapter 1158. If it can be sorted out tomorrow, I'll update it tomorrow. I am the Supreme, please invite another one. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.